Hogwarts, The Return of Turmoil. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 476, The Seal of Black Magic. Maureen's eyes froze for a moment. He had forgotten that the magic protection of Hogwarts was different from that of other places. But he had also created a loud explosion just now. Even if these explosions could not reach Hogsmeade Village, as long as they could wake up the portraits in the castle, it would be fine. For example, Principal Binnis, who was braiding his hair in the principal's office late at night, or Principal Dumbledore, no matter who it was, just hoped to remind them that something happened in the school, and then let them go to find Principal McGonagall. Maureen now only wanted to delay time. He had to delay until someone found out that something was wrong with his school and rushed over. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to fight against Peeing with his own strength. Are you trying to wake up the people in the castle, Walker? Peeing seemed to have expected everything. The muscles on his face were tangled together like hemp ropes, and he grinned. I can tell you that I can predict any way you can ask for help. Peeing slowly moved to the edge of the stone platform in the frame. There was a gray light on his body that was connected to the black magic cube of the stone arch. He snapped his fingers slowly, and a strange wave spread out from the castle. Maureen then realized that the entire castle had been covered by a gray barrier at some point. This magic barrier was very gloomy, like a black curtain, covering the entire castle. No matter how you use the explosion spell outside, it will be useless. No one in the castle will hear it. You can't get in, and the people inside can't get out. I can guarantee you that. Pying Aid said. Maureen's heart sank. Although Lucas and the old witch were defeated by him, he still felt timid when facing the real Pying Aid. This time he really hoped that he had a bottle of dragon flame cold repellent to fully exert the magic power in his body. Only in this way would he have a chance to confront Pying Aid head-on. Unfortunately, he was not in the painting at the moment, and Pying Aid was already able to cast magic on the outside of the painting in the painting. Maureen's chances of winning were too low. He thought quickly about the countermeasures in his mind. Pying Aid had the Locan magnet and a damn lightning rod, which made any of his spells ineffective. Even if he used the afterimage again, it would be useless because this spell could not cause any hindrance to Pying Aid in this situation. Why are you still standing there stupidly? Walker, don't you want to save your classmates? Pying Aid waved his wand and grabbed Sweet from the ground into the air. Sweet half closed his eyes and looked very bad. Let him go. Maureen shouted. He must find a way to delay time as much as possible and attract Pying Aid's attention. Otherwise. Pying Aid sneered. What do you want? Maureen stared closely at the light that Pying Aid connected together. He didn't know what this light meant, but he felt that he had to break the connection between the stone arch and the four people of Pying Aid. Where is the black magic cube of the Clive family? Pying Aid asked. I put it somewhere else. Maureen said in a deep voice, you can't get it. Pying looked at Maureen coldly. Did you put it in the abyss? Do you know this place? I know everything, Walker. I know much more than you do. Pying paced slowly on the stone platform. Are you still making such a fuss? Since you know I put it there, you can give up. Maureen looked around cautiously, hoping that someone would rush out from the corner of the school at this time to give him courage. But the distance was still dark and silent, and the castle was too quiet. The bright moon was in the sky, the stars were shining, but no one came to help him. It's just one black cube missing. Pying narrowed his eyes, seemingly not taking it to heart. He pointed his wand at Sweet and continued, it's a pity that Clive's black cube was not obtained, but it doesn't matter. I still have 4, Pying pointed to the 4 rays of light on the stone archway. Although the 4 black cubes did not meet my expectations, they are enough. I only need one of them. I have studied it for so long, and I only need to open the seal of one of the black cubes. We will know soon. Seal? What is the black cube for? Maureen's mind was full of doubts. At first, he thought that it took 12 keys to open the stone archway, but Pying told him that the black cube was not just as simple as a key. Now Pying relied on a strange spell to connect the black cubes on the 4 stone archways with 4 people. What does it mean? What is sealed in the black cube? Maureen asked. It's very interesting. You won't understand it. Many people don't understand it. Pying Aid laughed. He tapped his wand twice on his left palm and said, but I won't tell you. Why should I tell you? Some things are not interesting if they are said out loud. You are just bluffing. Maureen said whatever he thought of. He just hoped that someone would come over. You must be missing something. Let me think about it. You can't completely open this seal. He was just guessing. In fact, he didn't even know what the seal meant. The latest novels are first published on Liuji 9 Shuba. You are quite smart. Pying-aid's proud look was slightly restrained. At this moment, the stone archway behind him suddenly emitted a ripple again, and then the 4 rays of light connected to Pying-aid and the others suddenly dimmed. How could it be? Pying-aid's expression suddenly changed, and he turned around immediately. The 4 rays of light weakened and were about to be cut off. Their connection was gradually disappearing. Bang! Sweet fell from the sky, and Adams and Anrin also fell to the ground. The magic on Pying-aid was gradually disappearing. It's a good idea. Although Maureen didn't know what happened, he saw that Pying-aid's magic on Sweet was ineffective, so he quickly jumped onto the stone platform and ran towards Professor Adams and Anrin, who were closest. Because of the existence of the lock magnet, he still couldn't cast magic now, but Pying-aid didn't seem to have anticipated the changes in the stone arch at this time, and his attention was attracted by the stone arch. This was Maureen's opportunity. Pying-aid stood on the stone platform, but didn't use magic on him. Obviously there were some restrictions, otherwise he should have attacked Maureen long ago. As long as Maureen pulled Anrin and the other 3 under the stone platform and took them far away from here, so that the stone arch could no longer work on them, it would definitely be able to further disrupt Pying-aid's plan. But the moment Maureen stepped on the stone platform, he suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Before he could react, he felt as if he was pushed by someone, and he flew towards the stone archway involuntarily. Haha. Walker, you are still too young. Pying-aid laughed triumphantly. I know you are stalling for time, and so am I. What's going on? Maureen was a little flustered. This way I don't have to think of ways to catch you. Pying-aid said slowly. You deliberately pretended that the stone archway was inoperable. Maureen said in surprise. Otherwise, how could you come up by yourself? Pying-aid sneered. Chapter 477 Expected and Unexpected. As long as you don't come up, I can't do anything to you. I'm connected to the stone arch, and my magic is restricted. Pying snapped his fingers, and the stone arch emitted light again, connecting Professor Adams and ran again. The light was not completely cut off just now, but it became very faint. But I know you will come up. I know you very well. You like to save people. Pying's mind is too deep. He predicts what Maureen will do every step of the way. No matter how smart Maureen is, he is still a 13-year-old child. In terms of experience, it is impossible for him to be a match for this dark wizard who has lived for hundreds of years. Damn it! Maureen said angrily. When Pying pretended that the stone arch was ineffective, Maureen didn't doubt anything at the time, because Pying's expression was so perfect that Maureen mistakenly thought that there was really something wrong with the stone arch. Who would have thought that this old monster who has lived for hundreds of years could actually learn to act? No wonder he has lived in the painting for so many years and is still alive and kicking. This guy is good at disguise, and his methods are extremely clever. He can always figure out other people's intentions. Let alone Maureen, even those experienced aurors in the Ministry of Magic were played around by him. But it was too late to think about anything now. Maureen had been dragged to the center of the stone arch by a terrible suction force. There seemed to be a strange force on the stone arch that began to transmit and penetrate into Maureen's body. The 4 lights of different colors quickly intertwined through his body, and then passed from him to the 4 people including Paingard. The black curtain behind him was still swaying. What was strange was that when the curtain swayed to Maureen, it went straight through Maureen's body, as if it regarded Maureen's body as a shadow. It hurts so much? Maureen felt as if something was torn apart inside his body. His body was in extreme pain, as if a monster was about to roar out of his body, and it seemed as if the blood in his body was about to boil. A terrifying magic was rampaging in his body. That's the feeling. The terrifying power hidden in his body, the magic that could make Maureen's flames out of control, actually began to boil under the guidance of the stone arch. Maureen had been thinking about how to stimulate this power, but he didn't expect that this time he would appear under the influence of the stone arch. But before Maureen had time to be happy, he realized that something was wrong again. Because the magical power was guided to the stone arch along the light, the stone arch seemed to want to devour the power in his body, and Morin couldn't resist distraction, and his muscles seemed to be torn apart. Damn it! Morin tried desperately to break free from the shackles of the stone arch, but he found that his whole body could not move. The power roared in his body, and he couldn't control it. Instead, the stone arch took away the initiative. Wind and thunder sound. Morin almost squeezed out this spell from between his teeth. Pyong laughed. What? You still want to use lightning to deal with me? Your spells don't work on me. You don't even have a wand. But Pyong suddenly paused, staring at Morin's empty right hand. Where's your wand? Hiss. As soon as Pyong finished speaking, the magic that maintained the Loken magnet in the air seemed to be deflated. The whole stone was entangled by blue electric sparks, and the magic that made the Loken magnet float began to make a sound of collapse. Bang! The Loken magnet fell to the ground, rolled to the edge of the stone platform, and was stepped on by a little foot. At the edge of the stone platform, Doya was holding Morin's wand, with her left little foot stepping on the Loken magnet, looking proud. The lightning rod that was originally used to protect the Loken magnet had already been thrown under the stone platform by Doya. Do you think everything is as you expected? You underestimate people, Morin said with gritted teeth. He had known for a long time that Pyong was full of schemes and tricks, so he was also cautious. When he climbed up the stone platform, he handed the magic wand to Doya. Morin went to attract Pyong's attention, while Doya quietly went over and pulled out the iron rod that was in the way. As long as this iron rod that could absorb lightning magic was gone, he could use the cooperation between him and Doya to rely on lightning to forcibly break the obstruction of the Loken magnet and make the Loken magnet ineffective, so that he could use magic again. It's this little beast. Pyong also caught a glimpse of Doya, and he narrowed his eyes and stared at Doya coldly. The old witch and Lucas couldn't see Doya, but Pyong could see him because he, like Sweet, had shining eyes. Doya, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Doya held Morin's wand proudly, pointed it at Pyong, waved it twice threateningly, and showed a row of cute little teeth, making a non-scary ferocious expression. Do you think you can stop me with just a beast? Avada Kedavra. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Pyong raised his wand without hesitation and shot a killing curse at Doya. Doya, magnet! Morin shouted. Doya was very smart, and it knocked Morin's wand on the magnet under its little feet. Swish! Pyong's killing curse was immediately attracted away by the Loken magnet. Doya, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Doya proudly extended a little finger to Pyong and hooked it. The other little foot stepped on the lock magnet and kept shaking. It seemed to provoke Pyong and told Pyong simply and clearly, bite me. Pyong's face was almost wrung out of water. The origin of lock magnet is very mysterious and extremely powerful. There's a very terrible magical magnetic force mixed in it. When it first appeared, it caused a great shock in the wizarding world. This magnet was stolen by Pyong from the dark magic warehouse of the Ministry of Magic. Lucas was almost invincible with it, and he could escape unscathed even when facing the pursuit and interception of Aurors. As long as he's not hit by special lightning magic, any wizard holding a magic wand against lock magnet and activating lock magnet can absorb all the spells flying from all directions, including the Avada Kedavra curse. Pyong had just used special magic to stimulate the Loken magnet to work, without the need for a wand to keep resisting. But Pyong had never thought that he was only concerned with catching Morin and completely forgot about Doya beside Morin. In his opinion, Doya was just an insignificant magic pet that could not cause any trouble at all. Asshole, unforgivable. Pyong roared in a low voice. He had considered everything very carefully for tonight's event. Except for Sweet helping Morin escape and Morin subduing the old witch and Lucas, which was beyond his expectation, everything else went according to his expectations. Morin was even caught by him on the stone archway. All the plans were in order, but he still missed the white little beast beside Morin, and was tricked by Morin again. What Pyong could not tolerate the most was that he, an old wizard who had lived for hundreds of years, who could fool the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic and break into the Ministry of Magic to steal things time and again, was actually despised by a palm-sized, seemingly immature beast. Chapter 478, Flamed Omen. Doya's provocative look made Pyong furious. A little beast who didn't know how high the sky was and whose fur hadn't even grown out yet dared to provoke him. Pyong immediately walked towards Doya angrily. Even now, he had not lost his mind. If even Avada Kedavra could be sucked away by Loken's magnet, then other spells would be useless, so he didn't cast any more magic. He was ready to catch this troublesome little monster in the painting himself. But Doi had already raised his wand towards him. Flames are raging. Maureen shouted from the stone archway. A violent flame gushed out of Doi's wand. The flame condensed into a ball in the air. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the terrifying flame twisted and deformed in the air and turned into the appearance of Doi, like an enlarged version, and a little cute, of the flaming Doi beast, and pounced on Pying. Doi, roar, roar. Doi bared his teeth and yelled fiercely. The fiery Doi beast in the air actually followed suit and grabbed Pying's head. Pying waved his magic wand in front of his eyes, and a surging wave of spray rolled out and splashed, pushing the fiery Doi beast away, but the wave was soon ignited by the flames. The power in Maureen's body was actually guided out by the magic wand in Doi's hand. The flame was very fierce and ignited everything it saw. The water magic cast by Pying became the fuel for the flame. Damn it! Pying retreated quickly. If it was a normal situation, he would have many ways to deal with this fiery Doi beast, but he was now in a picture frame. If the picture frame he was in was stained with a little spark, the consequences would be disastrous. The fiery Doi beast pounced on nothing and fell on the stone platform, but the strange thing was that this kind of flame could ignite anything, but it couldn't ignite the stone platform. The flame demon jumped up again and continued to pounce on Pying. The great demon king was forced to retreat step by step by a small beast holding a magic wand. This was probably the most frustrating battle that Pying had ever fought. Wind shadow transformation. Pying shook his magic wand, and a strong airflow swept out. This airflow formed a huge cage. At the moment when the flame demon pounced, it mobilized the air around it and trapped it inside. This is one of the 10 theoretical magics, which is said to be almost impossible to master. But Maureen learned this magic last time, and he didn't expect Pying to know this magic. Not only that, Pying's wind dragon magic was more skillful and powerful than Maureen's. The flamed omen was trapped in a cage formed by wind. The cage kept rotating and emitted a strong gust of wind. Every time the flamed omen tried to rush out, it would be blown back to the center. In this case, even if the flame was terrible and destructive, it would hardly work again because it could not touch anything. The flames are raging. Maureen shouted again. Doi was about to use this kind of flame again, but this time, after the flames came out of the magic wand, they lost their devouring power and were destroyed by Pying in one go. Momo, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Doi looked at Maureen in confusion. Maureen groaned. The power in his body had been sucked away by the stone archway. He had already reached his limit by using uncontrollable flames. Now the power was getting more and more violent and almost out of control. He could no longer control this kind of flame. My fuel is out of control, Doi, run! Maureen shouted. Pying had already rushed towards Doi. Before Doi could hold on to the Loken magnet, Pying had already waved his magic wand. A rope shot out from the tip of his magic wand and tied Doi up. Doi tapped the magic wand on the Loken magnet, and the Loken magnet immediately sucked in the rope created by magic, but Pying swept the picture frame towards Doi from the other side. When the picture frame swept over, it was not magic, and the Loken magnet could not suck it away. Doi screamed and jumped back. He did not have time to hug the Loken magnet, and the Loken magnet had been caught by Pying in the painting. Little beast, I'll see how you can play tricks this time, Avada Kedavra. Pying fired a killing curse at Doi viciously. Doi quickly jumped off the stone platform and avoided the killing curse. At this time, Maureen, who was on the other side of the stone arch, was feeling more and more uncomfortable. The stone arch seemed to be pulling the power in his body, trying to assimilate his power into part of the stone arch. The black magic cube on the stone arch connecting Pying, Enrin and the other 4 people was becoming more and more powerful. As the magic in Maureen's body was assimilated by the stone arch, the 4 black magic cubes were completely opened. Maureen's mind felt like it was about to explode, and he no longer had the ability to cast spells. He felt as if something was shattered, and he didn't know whether it came from the black cube or from his own body. It was as if something suddenly became chaotic, causing his consciousness to become chaotic for a moment. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Not only that, the 5th black cube was also slowly being opened, and this black cube was not connected to any of the descendants guarding him, but to Maureen. Then came the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. In addition to the black cube of the Clive family that Maureen had just thrown into the abyss, The remaining black cubes seemed to directly regard Maureen as the descendant of their respective family guardians, and opened them with the help of the terrifying power in his body. It seemed that there was a solid barrier inside the black cube that was gradually collapsing, and it seemed that something was gradually waking up and trying to break free from the black cube. Just when Maureen felt that his body was about to split, a very strange force suddenly came from his chest, and then a white light shone on his body. This white light suddenly bounced off the light of the 5 black cubes, and turned into light and shadow that rushed out, quickly interlaced around him, and suddenly bit off the light connecting Maureen's body and the black cube. The badger that Hufflepuff gave him in the room of requirement last time. Huh? Maureen suddenly fell from the center of the stone archway, lying on the ground and gasping for breath. He seemed to have been thrown into a big wheel and rotated for several days and nights, and his internal organs were in chaos. And Ran and Professor Adams also fell to the ground. Helena was a ghost. She didn't look much damaged, but she also frowned, because the light connecting them was completely bitten off by the Hufflepuff badger this time. The patroness of Hufflepuff. Payanger looked fiercely at the badger that suddenly appeared. His expression turned cold, and then he sneered, "But it's just a patroness, it's useless." The white light on the badger's body began to dim and was about to dissipate gradually, as if biting off the light and exhausting its magic. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 479 Ancient Ghost. Maureen didn't even have the strength to raise his head. His vision was split, as if there were many shadows swaying in front of him. But without the traction of the stone arch, the power in his body gradually subsided, but this also made him feel much better. "Walker, it's not over yet. The remaining 5 black cubes have not been fully opened," Pyong said coldly. Maureen didn't have the strength to respond to him. He was very uncomfortable. But at this time, the Hufflepuff badger made a strange call. The call was very crisp and melodious, and even spread far away. It seemed to be looking for something noisy. Pyong fired a dark spell at the Hufflepuff badger, but the badger jumped away nimbly and jumped to the edge of the stone platform. Then the white body curled up completely, forming a vortex. The vortex turned faster and faster, and soon formed a white door. A person flew out of the door quickly. "Unforgivable, Helena, you actually did this." The dull but angry voice echoed around. It was an old man who looked very old, with a long beard and glasses. His body was a little illusory, like a puff of smoke. When Helena saw this person appear, her face changed slightly. The person who came was actually Professor Binns. "Why is it you? Weren't you led by me?" Helena looked at Professor Binns, who suddenly appeared with an uncertain face. "You led me to Albania? Helena, you disappoint me and actually deceived me." Professor Binns' sinister and sharp eyes fell on Helena, revealing his sharpness, so that Helena did not dare to look at him. Professor Binns glanced around, glanced at Maureen, who was panting on the ground, and immediately floated to Maureen's side, stretched out his hand and put it on Maureen's shoulder. Maureen felt as if a piece of ice was placed on his shoulder. A strange feeling of coldness instantly flowed into his limbs, making his whole body cold, but this strange feeling of coldness suddenly stabilized the irritable things in his body. "Are you okay?" Professor Binns asked dryly. "I'm fine, Professor." Maureen raised his head and looked at Professor Binns. He felt that Professor Binns seemed to be somewhat different from usual, but he couldn't tell what was different for a while. If he had to say it, he found that Professor Binns' body seemed to have become much stronger. "You know, Professor Binns is a ghost, and the ghost body is very illusory, but the Professor Binns in front of him is a little different, between illusion and reality." Maureen soon saw that there was a black magic cube in Professor Binns' half-real and half-virtual body. "Professor, why did you bring the black magic cube?" Maureen asked anxiously. "Pyong 8 has been collecting black magic cubes. If Professor Binns brings the Cuthbert family's black magic cube, wouldn't that fulfill Pyong 8's wish? I have to do this." Professor Binns stood up and looked at Pyong coldly. "Otherwise there is no way to stop this guy." Pyong's face sank when he saw Professor Binns. Although Professor Binns was just a ghost, he seemed to be facing a great enemy. He even took 2 steps back. "Cuthbert." Pyong almost squeezed out the name from his teeth. "Pyong, as a descendant of the 12 families, you dare to attack the stone arch?" Professor Binns shouted angrily. Piang's eyes fell on the black magic cube in Professor Bin's body. At this time, Professor Binns did not look like a ghost, but he was not a real person either. He raised his wand and looked at Professor Binns vigilantly. "You actually escaped, Cuthbert," Piang said coldly. "I thought I trapped you last time." "Trapped?" Maureen got up from the ground in surprise and stood behind Professor Binns. He was a little confused. What else could a ghost be trapped by? Professor Binns snorted coldly. He looked at Helena and shouted, "Helena, you'd better give me an explanation. You clearly know what the stone arch means. Why do you help him?" A trace of pain appeared on Helena's face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cuthbert, I have to do this." "Are you worthy of your mother like this?" Professor Binns said coldly. "You have done too many things that disappointed her. You willfully stole her crown, against her will, and now you are helping the descendants of Paingard to go astray. When can you really grow up and stop worrying people?" Maureen felt strange listening to Professor Binns' words. Because Helena's age should be much older than Professor Binns, but when Professor Binns said these words to Helena, it seemed like he was teaching a younger generation. Could it be that? Maureen had an incredible idea in his mind, and he looked at Professor Binns in surprise. The latest novel is published on the 69th Book Forum. Headmaster McGonagall said last time that she didn't know how old Professor Binns was, but based on the limited information, she estimated that he was between 400 and 500 years old. However, the school has very few records of him, and even his origins are unclear. This is an ancient ghost, so ancient that almost all wizards who can graduate from Hogwarts are his students. What if Professor Binns is actually from that era? "I'm sorry, Mr. Cuthbert, I did this for her." A sad look appeared on Helena's face. She seemed to be recalling something, and countless thoughts turned into sad and angry words. "You said I haven't grown up yet, but I have been trying to make up for my mistakes all these years. I haven't seen her, and I dare not to see her. I would rather stay in this world and suffer for more than 1,000 years. So what?" Professor Binns' voice was full of anger. "It was you who chose to take this path. After the wizard dies, if he turns back, he can no longer go on, and can only wander helplessly in the places he walked in his lifetime, until I saw the stone arch appear. Only when the stone arch is open can the ghost have the choice again, choose to continue going, to go to that place to see her and confess to her." Helena looked at the stone arch with a dazed look. The stone arch was still alternating between black and white, looking so weird. "The stone archway should not be opened," Professor Binns said firmly. "When your mother, I and other 12 people closed it, it was not allowed to be opened again. You have missed it once, have you forgotten?" Maureen opened his mouth wide. "Professor, you are Cuthbert, himself." "Yes," Professor Binns said dryly and hoarsely. "Someone must stay to prevent what happened today." Maureen was extremely shocked. He never expected that the teacher who had been teaching them the history of magic actually hid such an incredible identity. One of the ancestors of the 12 black cube guarding families has survived to this day in the form of a ghost. That is a wizard on par with the Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. No wonder Professor Binns knows history like the back of his hand, because with his identity, he is not learning history from books, but a witness to history. Maureen glanced at Piang, who had retreated to the edge of the stone platform. He had been wondering why Piang was so afraid of Professor Binns when he saw him appear. Now Maureen understood that Piang had probably learned about this from Helena a while ago. Facing such an ancient wizard, even Piang did not dare to take it lightly. Chapter 480 Binns Cuthbert. But there were countless questions in Maureen's mind. If Professor Binns had lived from such a long time ago, why didn't he help when Hogwarts suffered a serious blow more than 20 years ago? My responsibility is to protect the secrets of the Black Cube and the Stone Arch. Professor Binns seemed to understand what Maureen was thinking and continued, I became a ghost and stayed here. I will only witness history and not interfere with history. But if someone wants to dig out the secrets of the Black Cube and the Stone Arch, I will definitely not let him go. Not interfere with history. Maureen suddenly realized that when Professor Binns suffered a serious blow at Hogwarts more than 20 years ago, he did not stop Voldemort because Voldemort did not know about the Black Cube and did not touch his bottom line. History is constantly changing. Who wants to rise, who wants to be resurrected, and who wants to rule the world are all part of history. This should be the concern of the living, not a dead ghost. For Professor Binns, he has seen too many similar things. He has seen more Dark Lords than anyone else, not less than Voldemort or Paingard. In his eyes, Voldemort and Piangid were just minor characters he had met during his long ghost career. Even if Piangid caught students in school, he was too lazy to care. Everyone he had seen would die sooner or later. He had seen too many deaths in lives, and had long been numb to death. But when Piangid set his sights on the black cube, Professor Binns could not ignore it. "Professor, where have you been recently?" Maureen asked in awe. Although Professor Binns's lectures were usually dry and made people sleepy, he no longer dared to despise him. This was a real living fossil, older than Helena. "Go catch these two," Professor Binns said simply. "Catch?" Maureen was stunned. Professor Binns, a person in ghost form, would actually catch these two? This was the first time he heard that ghosts had the ability to chase dark wizards. You know, in his concept, ghosts can do nothing except blowing some cold air and splashing some water to scare muggles. But Professor Binns left Hogwarts alone to catch Piangid, which was really unbelievable. Professor Binns looked at Helena. "Are you still stubborn now, Helena?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Cuthbert, I didn't want to treat you like this." Helena shook her head and said, "But I have no choice, I have to do this." "Helena, you used your knowledge of the black cube to help Piangid trap me. I can ignore this matter, but you are still so selfish and willful. You know the consequences of opening the stone archway better than them. Do you think your mother will forgive you if you go there?" Professor Binns said angrily. He glanced at Piangid again, and Piangid narrowed his eyes and tightened his wand involuntarily. Helena shook her head. "I don't ask for her forgiveness, but I still hope to see her. I won't let you open the stone archway." Professor Binns waved his hand, and he held a magic wand in his hand. This magic wand was completely real, all black, with circles of veins, and a spark of spark splashed from the tip of the wand. Maureen didn't expect that Professor Binns, as a ghost, could still use a magic wand, but he found that Professor Binns at this time didn't look like a ghost. The black magic cube seemed to have some strange magic to maintain him. Piangid also waved his wand and pointed it at Professor Binns. "Cuthbert, I admit that I have always underestimated you. Even when I was in Hogwarts last year, I didn't think that the real Cuthbert was you, but you are just a ghost after all." Professor Binns didn't wait for Piangid to finish his words. His magic wand sprayed a gray-white light. This gray-white light was like the illusory color of the soul. It turned into a whirlpool in the air and rolled towards Piangid. Piangid had taken out a lock and magnet again, trying to devour Professor Binns's magic, but he was soon surprised to find that the lock and magnet, which could absorb everyone's magic, could not absorb Professor Binns's magic. What a difficult ghost. Piangid cursed inwardly, and immediately waved a sign light, which turned into a water curtain to meet the gray-white vortex. The two completely different colors of magic collided with each other in the air, erupting a powerful wave, and the violent air waves rolled out. Maureen couldn't help but step back 2 steps. Piangid had already jumped out of the stone platform and floated in the air. His picture frame became as black as ink, almost invisible in the night sky, and even made people mistakenly think that he had stood out of the painting. Helena used her understanding of me to set a trap for me. It was Hufflepuff who brought me here with her Patronus, but I can't hold him for too long. Go and close the stone archway. Professor Binns turned and shouted at Maureen. Then how do I close the stone arch? Maureen shouted. Take out all the black cubes. Professor Binns's body, which seemed to be both real and unreal, had also floated into the air. His wand once again emitted a gray-white smoke, which roared in the air. 3 fluffy-haired snow mastiffs jumped out of it and rushed towards Piangid from different directions. The latest novels are first published on Liuji 9 Shuba. Piangid waved a huge feather pen from the tip of his wand. The feather pen flowed rapidly in the air, and a huge eye appeared at his feet. The eye emitted a terrifying light and gradually began to open. Swish! Swish! A cold green light burst out from his eyes and rolled towards the 3 gray snow mastiffs, defeating one of them at once, but the other 2 opened their bloody mouths, bit off the light, stretched out their big claws, and slapped Piangid. Piangid kept retreating, avoiding the attacks of the snow mastiffs. Even Professor Binns's attack was a bit too much for him. He saw that Maureen had already attacked the black magic cube of the stone arch, and immediately shouted to Helena, "Helena, if you want to choose again." Helena's ghostly figure turned into a ball of gray-white light, rushed to the stone arch, and penetrated Maureen's body. Maureen felt that he fell into the ice cellar again. He couldn't help but shiver, but Helena was faster than him, and Ravenclaw's black magic cube was already in her hand. "Let go, Maureen, I don't want to hurt you." Helena held the black cube in her left hand, and a magic wand appeared in her right hand without her knowing when. I won't let go. Professor Binns is right, you shouldn't help Ping. Maureen had taken down a black cube and was taking down the second one, but he was suddenly hit by a huge force, and he flew up and fell under the stone platform. He felt that his bones almost fell apart after falling down, and he could hardly get up. Sorry, I can't let you close the stone archway, it's just one step away, I can't let you ruin this step. Helena pointed her magic wand at Maureen, and at this time her body actually changed from virtual to half-virtual, just like Professor Binns. Chapter 481 The Power of the Black Cube. You're crazy. Maureen sat up with great effort and shouted at Helena. You don't understand anything, Helena yelled angrily. At first I didn't dare to go on and chose to stay here, but for thousands of years, I have been tortured by regrets. If there is a chance to choose again in front of me, I don't want to give up, I want to go on. Being a ghost is too painful. Helena had picked up the black magic cube that Maureen had pulled out from the ground and pressed it into the stone arch again. I don't care what you choose, but it's wrong for you to help Ping. Maureen stood up from the ground, walked towards the stone platform, and said angrily, Hufflepuff said that terrible things will happen if the stone arch is opened. You knew what Ping wanted to do, but you didn't stop him. Instead, you assisted him in this place. Maureen pointed to the castle next to him. In the magic school founded by your mother, you let Ping do whatever he wants. Do you know how many muggles and wizards he killed in order to get the black cube in the stone arch? I don't care about these, Helena yelled at Maureen. Her voice became very shrill. This is none of my business. Death is irrelevant to Ghost. How many people died is meaningless to me. Maureen had climbed onto the stone platform, and he walked towards the stone arch angrily. But Helena fired a spell at him again, and this gray light blocked Maureen's eyes, making Maureen unable to move forward. Don't force me. Helena's pale face had become somewhat distorted. I have to do this. Expelliarmus. Maureen shouted. Doy had already circled to the other side, holding the magic wand and casting a disarming spell from behind Helena, but Helena seemed to be prepared. She just waved her hand and blocked Doy's attack. You can't hurt me. You don't understand the power of the black magic cube at all. Helena didn't turn around at all, but a gray-white light came out of her body, like a continuous tide attacking Doy behind her. Doy screamed. It quickly dodged this magic, dodged a few times in the air, jumped onto Maureen's shoulder, and stuffed the magic wand to Maureen. Wind shadow transformation. Maureen shouted, and the magic wand sprayed out a powerful airflow, which was waving and whistling in the air, wrapping Helena's magic, and the two completely different magics collided with each other, and a hot air wave burst out again. Maureen didn't expect Helena's magic to be so powerful. He was blown away by the air wave and fell beside Professor Adams. In the distance, the fight between Pingit and Professor Binns made a strong roar. The whole hillside was blown up by the magic between them. Are you okay? Maureen. Professor Adams quickly helped Maureen up. Maureen was panting. Most of his magic had been drained away by the stone arch, and his body felt a little empty. I'm fine. Are you okay? Anran. Maureen saw Anran curled up on the ground, his face as white as a piece of paper, and he was very worried. I'm fine. The stone arch just drained too much blood. Anran said exhaustedly. What should we do now? Professor Adams asked anxiously, his eyes flashing blue light. He was captured at night and didn't bring his wand with him. He couldn't help at this time. Stop the stone arch from opening. Maureen stood up again and fired several spells at Helena, but his spells hit Helena and were all blocked by Helena. It's useless. You are not my opponent. Helena shook her head and said, don't resist in vain. You can't imagine the power of the black cube. Just look at Professor Binns. He relied on the black cube to force Ping to retreat. Although I am not as skilled as him in controlling this power, I can still deal with you. Helena waved her wand again, and the gray-white light fell not far from the hillside, shattering the mirror covering the old witch and removing the evil curse on the two of them. I won't let you go, you little brat. Lucas roared and got up. His wand was broken by Maureen, but he took out another one from his pocket. In order to leave no trace of magic, fugitives like him stole many wizards' wands. Even if one was destroyed, there were still many left. Lucas and the old witch walked to the stone platform with sullen faces, glared at Maureen, and fired an evil curse at him. Maureen rushed to the side, and Lucas's spell splashed sparks on the stone platform. You dare to use a mirror against me, I will never let you go. The old witch screamed and fired many spells at Maureen. Maureen was hit in the chest by one of the gray spells, and felt that he was almost suffocated. Stop. Professor Adams quickly blocked Maureen behind him. You are not allowed to touch my students. Professor Adams wiped his sweat. Although he was very scared and could not cast magic, he could not let a 10-year-old child stand in front of him. He felt that he had the responsibility to protect Maureen and ran. Are you looking for death? Lucas said in a low voice. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. You two have gone too far. The people from the Ministry of Magic will definitely not let you go. Professor Adams said fiercely. Principal McGonagall and the others are already rushing here. You will not end up like this. Don't worry, that old woman McGonagall is chasing us somewhere abroad. We left some clues for her and Francis. They won't be back for a while. Lucas said viciously. Professor Adams' heart sank. It was a holiday now, and Payengid had sealed off the castle. No movement outside could be transmitted to the castle, let alone notify them. No matter what, neither of you are allowed to touch my students. Professor Adams had no intention of backing down. Helena, is he still useful? Lucas turned around and asked. Helena shook her head. His family's black cube has been activated, and he is no longer needed. Very good, since you want to protect your students, then I will fulfill your wish. Lucas raised his wand and laughed cruelly. I have killed so many people, but I have never killed a professor at Hogwarts. Lucas stared at Maureen fiercely. Smelly boy, you just treated me like that. I will kill everyone around you and let you know the consequences of going against me. Then I will start with this professor who doesn't know how to live or die. Professor, get out of the way. Maureen was startled. With Lucas's ruthless temperament, killing a person was not a difficult task for him. He quickly looked for his wand, but he was restrained by the old witch's spell and didn't even have the strength to raise his hand. You want to kill someone. Professor Adams looked at Lucas in fear. A cruel smile appeared at the corner of Lucas's mouth. Avada Kedavra. Lucas's wand emitted a dazzling green light and landed directly on Professor Adams' chest. Professor Adams' breathing stagnated, his eyes widened in disbelief, his body trembled, and he froze in place. No. Professor, don't. Maureen yelled in shock and anger, and his mind suddenly became blank. Chapter 482 The Adams Family's Abilities. Maureen never expected that Lucas would actually use the killing curse on Professor Adams. The moment Professor Adams was hit by the killing curse, Maureen was stunned. He stared at Professor Adams in a daze. But Professor Adams did not fall down. He still stood in front of Maureen, looking at Lucas in surprise. Then he touched his chest again. That was where he was hit by the killing curse. He originally thought that he would be killed by the killing curse instantly like a normal person, but Professor Adams waited for death for a long time, but he did not feel any death. Am I dead? Professor Adams turned his head carefully and asked Maureen. Maureen was also stunned for a moment. He was also confused at this time. If Professor Adams had not really stood in front of him and talked to him, he would even think that Professor Adams had become a ghost. This feeling is really weird. How is it possible? How come you are not dead? Lucas was no less shocked than Professor Adams. You know, he's a wizard who kills without blinking an eye. It is not the first time for him to use the killing curse to take people's lives. But now he can't take the life of an unarmed wizard? No one can survive the killing curse. If you insist, there is only one person in the history of magic who has this ability. That person's fame is still well known. That is Harry Potter. But Harry Potter was able to avoid the killing curse because his mother used her life to protect him. Could it be that Professor Adams also has this ancient magic? But this kind of magic should also have limitations. Crucio. Lucas shouted angrily and sent a powerful unforgivable curse to Professor Adams again. This spell hit Professor Adams' chest again. However, Professor Adams still did not react. He scratched his head and looked quite puzzled. These spells that can make other wizards terrified have no effect on him. Professor, what's going on? You are so powerful, Maureen said in amazement. If the Avada Kedavra curse can be protected by some ancient magic, then a spell like Cruciatus cannot be resisted by other magic. Lucas was also a little panicked. He knew Professor Adams well. This professor was just a ridiculous squib. He personally captured Professor Adams at night. However, he used 2 unforgivable curses on Professor Adams in succession, but he could not defeat Professor Adams. This made him begin to doubt his magic. Is there something wrong with his magic? This is also the question of everyone. Go away, let me do it. Dead spirit withering. The old witch raised her wand and swung a sharp dark gray spell at Professor Adams again. This black magic spell had a terrifying aura, mixed with a dead breath. Even Maureen knew that he could not resist this spell. However, Professor Adams was still unscathed. His body did not even move, as if those black magics had completely disappeared from him. The old witch also changed her face at once. "Are you two done?" Helena shouted from the other side. "Why can't we kill him?" Lucas questioned angrily. Helena was silent for a moment, then said, "Of course you can't kill him. No magic can kill him. This is the ability of the Addams family. If he hasn't awakened this ability, you can still kill him. Once awakened, no one spell will be effective against him." Everyone was shocked, even Maureen found it incredible. "Could it be that, Professor, you are a curse immune magus?" Maureen exclaimed. He suddenly remembered the summary of wizard abilities that Magatha had collected for him last time, which mentioned that a few wizards had the ability to be curse immune. But Maureen also clearly remembered that the curse immune magus recorded in the information collected by Magatha at that time was at most immune to some basic spells, such as the stunning spell, the petrifying spell, the disarming spell, and the like. He had never heard of a wizard like Professor Adams who was immune to all spells. Yes, is that so?" Professor Adams blinked his blue eyes. He was captured by Lucas with magic at night, but just now he touched the black cube, which made his eyes glow and awaken his ability, but he himself didn't quite understand what this ability was. All spells are ineffective against him? Isn't this just a legend? Lucas and the old witch took a step back in surprise and looked at each other. A wizard who is immune to all magic is quite terrifying. Lucas shouted at Helena, "Why didn't you tell us earlier? Don't you understand yet?" Helena glanced at the two and said slowly, "Once the Addams family's ability is awakened, although they can be immune to all magic, their family will lose the ability to cast magic accordingly, which is equivalent to a Muggle. If you want to move him, you have to rely on brute force like Muggles fighting." "Rely on brute force?" The old witch and Lucas looked at each other. "Then I will smash him to death." The latest novel is published on the 69th book bar. Lucas waved his wand under the stone platform, and a huge stone flew up and hit Professor Adams. Professor Adams was startled, and he quickly bent down to protect Maureen and ran under himself. Bang! However, the stone hit Professor Adams' head, but the stone fell softly to the ground, motionless, and Professor Adams was still unharmed. "Stupid!" Helena shouted, "I've already said that any magic is ineffective against him. Anything that is cast with magic will not hurt him if he touches it. Even if a mountain falls on him, the mountain will avoid him. You have to tie him up yourself. Tie him up yourself." The old witch and Lucas couldn't help but take a look at Professor Adams' fat body. Not to mention the old witch who had half a foot in the coffin, even Lucas was a thin man. If he fought with the fat Professor Adams, he would not get any advantage at all. Even if the old witch had a lot of magic to support her to become extremely powerful, if she touched Professor Adams' body, these magics would be ineffective. Maybe the old witch would break her bones on the spot. "Go and catch him," said the old witch. "Me." Lucas didn't dare to move. He felt that compared with the fat Professor Adams, his thin arms could not twist his thighs. For wizards, the most disdainful thing is to fight with brute force. Who is willing to fight like a primitive man when something can be solved with magic? So there are benefits to not being able to cast magic. Professor Adams' chest suddenly straightened up. "You two wait here first, I'll go and take care of these two." Professor Adams stood up and shouted, "I will never spare you two, I will hit you to death." Professor Adams rushed towards Lucas and the old witch like a fat bear. Dark Spear Barrier. Withering Soul Reaper. Divine Edge Shadowless. Sweeping the thousands of armies. Dead Spirit Bloom. Black Flame Binding. Withered Bone Judgment. Shadow Shackles. Lucas and the old witch cast all kinds of powerful magic at Professor Adams in an instant, but Professor Adams rushed over like a reckless man. What the hell? The two were startled and turned around and ran. Chapter 483 Threat. Although Lucas was cunning, his physical fitness was not very good, not to mention the old witch. If she was hit by Professor Adams, who was cursed, her bones would probably be shattered into pieces. They were not willing to fight Professor Adams. The two arrogant people were immediately chased by the arrogant Professor Adams and fled, jumping off the stone platform. They were all wizards who knew magic, and there was no chance of winning by fighting. Helena had already waved her wand at Maureen, But Professor Adams was not reckless. After driving Lucas and the old witch away, he immediately turned around and rushed over to block Helena's spell. "I won't let you hurt them." Professor Adams stretched out his broad hand and grabbed Maureen. The moment Maureen was caught by Professor Adams, he felt that the magic in his body seemed to stagnate for a while. This feeling was very surprising. Maureen even thought that he could no longer cast magic. But Professor Adams's strange power was also quite strange. He was originally weakened by a spell cast by the old witch, but when Professor Adams touched him, he not only suppressed his magic, but also eliminated the old witch's binding black magic spell. Curse-free Magus is really powerful. Maureen swallowed his saliva. He had recovered as before. He quickly stood up, held the wand in his hand again, and looked at Helena vigilantly. Helena also looked at them coldly. She knew the ability of the Adams family best. This kind of curse-free wizard was the most difficult to deal with. In the ancient times, there were swordsmen and the like who could deal with them, but now the world dominated by wizards basically had no way to deal with Professor Adams. "Helena's magic can't hurt you either." Maureen saw a clue and said in a low voice. After awakening the family's ability, Professor Adams was simply the nemesis of all wizards. If Professor Adams knew swordsmanship or Muggle fighting skills, he would be invincible among wizards. This ability is really terrible. "Stand behind me, I'll be your shield." Professor Adams panted and wiped the sweat from his forehead. After all, he was still a fat man, and it was very tiring to run a few steps. Helena pointed her wand at Sweet, who was still trapped by Payengard's magic. "Don't move, I don't want to hurt any of you, but don't force me, otherwise I will kill him." Helena gritted her teeth and said. Sweet's face showed a very painful look. He groaned, and seemed to be holding something tightly in his hand. "Do you still want to kill people?" "Helena, what do you want?" Maureen said angrily. Helena wanted to open the stone archway against her mother's wishes from the beginning to the end, and now she is threatening her students. Her magic is very powerful, and Maureen can't knock her down easily. There's only one last step left. Your blood. Drop your blood on the stone arch and open the stone arch. Otherwise, I will throw him into the stone arch. The stone arch is a road of no return. He will never come back. Helena waved her magic wand, and Sweet was caught and floated in front of the stone arch. "No. Stop it." Maureen shouted anxiously. "Don't worry about me. Go and take down the black cube from the stone arch," Sweet said in a low voice. Lucas and the old witch had also jumped up from the other side of the stone platform and looked at Professor Adams vigilantly. If Professor Adams covered Maureen and ran to the stone arch to get the black cube, they would not be able to stop him. Maureen looked at Sweet, then at the stone arch, and clenched his fists. "Okay, I promise," Maureen said in a serious tone. "You are crazy," Sweet shouted. "I can't let anything happen to you." Maureen took a deep breath. "If the stone arch can't be opened, then it shouldn't be opened," Sweet said indifferently. "You know this better than me." Maureen hesitated for a moment, and finally chose to shake his head. "Being alive is more important than anything else," Maureen said. Professor Adams also chose to save Sweet. He didn't know what it meant to open the stone arch, and even Maureen didn't know, but if they were asked to watch Sweet being thrown into the curtain of the stone arch, they couldn't do it. Professor Adams stood in front of Maureen and Anran. The three of them walked towards the stone arch cautiously. The old witch and Lucas both pointed their wands at Professor Adams, but did not fire any more futile spells. In the distance, Piengd was still fighting fiercely with Professor Binns, and all kinds of powerful spells were flying everywhere. Piengd was in the painting, and Professor Binns was a ghost. Both of them had limitations. In comparison, Professor Binns had the upper hand and suppressed Piengd. But Maureen also knew that Professor Binns's magic could not last too long. The black cube had its limits. Perhaps after a while, Professor Binns would not be able to pose a threat to Piengd. Maureen, Professor Adams and Anran had already retreated to the side of the stone arch. Maureen glanced at the stone arch and then at Sweet. He stretched out his wand and scratched his finger, leaving a wound. Blood seeped out. "Very good, smear the blood on the black cube," Helena said. Maureen stretched out his hand. "You shouldn't do this. It will be fine in a while." Sweet spread his palm and a bunch of things fell to the ground. Everyone's eyes fell on the thing that fell from Sweet's hand. It was a strange fang pendant. The pendant made a crisp sound of hitting the ground. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. "What is this?" Helena frowned. But Maureen took advantage of Helena's distraction and whispered, "Professor Adams, hurry. Now." Professor Adams reached up and grabbed the corner of Sweet's clothes. The magic that Helena had gathered on Sweet suddenly failed. Sweet fell from the air and was pulled over by Professor Adams and pulled behind him. "How dare you play tricks?" Helena screamed, and Lucas and the old witch also fired spells at them at the same time. These spells rushed towards them like an overwhelming force. Professor Adams stood in the front and most of the spells hid him. But the old witch cast a spell quickly, which turned a corner, bypassed Professor Adams, and rushed towards Sweet Unforgivable. "How dare you attack these children?" An angry roar came from, and then a terrifying blood mist floated over, instantly covering Lucas at the back. Lucas screamed and fell heavily. A figure appeared on the stone platform. Floyd. Maureen breathed a sigh of relief. Floyd's arrival gave them hope. To him, Helena was even more difficult than the old witch and Lucas. Only Floyd could deal with her. "Are you all right?" Floyd and Professor Adams stood side by side, looking anxiously at Sweet, Maureen and the other three. "Why are you here just now?" Sweet said coldly, "I took it off 15 minutes ago." "I'm sorry." Floyd apologized with a guilty look on his face. "As soon as you took it off, I knew you were in Hogwarts, and I apparated here directly, but it took me a long time to get into the school, and the magic in Hogwarts is not so easy to break into." Clive. Helena raised her wand. A descendant of Ravenclaw. Floyd's hands were already bleeding, and he looked at Helena angrily. "You actually killed students." Swish. The bright red blood curse quickly rushed out and went towards Helena and the old witch, and Helena's magic also emitted a gray-white spell that blocked the blood curse in an instant. "I know how to deal with the blood curse of the Clive family. Moira, go capture Maureen and ask him to open the stone archway. Remember, attack separately. Adams is just one person." After all, Helena was from that era and knew a lot about the secrets of the 12 families. Although the blood curse of the Clive family was powerful, she was not afraid of it. Chapter 484, Restricted Ability. Be careful. Floyd stood in the front, their spells intertwined in the air, but Floyd's blood curse that could suppress a group of auras in the past could not easily defeat Helena this time. Helena relied on the power of the black magic cube to fight Floyd on equal terms. Floyd's face also changed slightly. The fight between Floyd and Helena was quite fierce, but Helena's magic with the help of black magic was obviously better, and she actually suppressed Floyd steadily. Lucas on the side also got up from the ground. He and the old witch acted separately, one in front and one behind, and surrounded Maureen and his group from different directions. Maureen quickly raised his wand and leaned against Anrin and Sweet, confronting Lucas. The old witch knew that Maureen would use the mirror against her, so she asked Lucas to attack from behind. Maureen was inexplicably nervous. At this time, he could no longer rely on Dewey to deal with Lucas like he did just now. At that time, he relied on luck and surprise to subdue Lucas. If he fought head-on, his chances were slim. Anrin did not bring a wand, and it was useless for her to bring a wand. First-grade children had not learned any magic. Sweet's wand fell under the stone platform, and he could not use magic now. Although Professor Adams did not need to worry too much about the old witch, he had to protect Anrin and Sweet behind him, and the pressure was also great. "I'll see what you can do this time," the old witch said sinisterly. The storm-like spells quickly poured towards Professor Adams from all directions. Professor Adams spread his arms and protected Sweet and Anrin tightly behind his back. On the other side, Lucas's spells also shot densely towards Maureen. "All of you hold my hands." Professor Adams rolled up his sleeves and shouted, exposing his arms. Sweet and Anrin quickly grabbed Professor Adams' arm. When some spells hit their bodies, they were also frightened, but they would soon be eliminated by Professor Adams' special ability. Maureen only blocked Lucas's spell twice, and he could no longer block it. He was hit by many spells. If he hadn't held Professor Adams' arm with his other hand and used Professor Adams to eliminate the spells on him, the consequences would be disastrous. But gradually, Professor Adams looked paler and paler. "I don't feel right." "What's wrong, Professor?" Maureen asked quickly. "Ability, I don't know. Every time I resist a spell, I feel my body will be tired. Now I feel like I'm going to collapse." Professor Adams' whole body was soaked with sweat. He kept panting, but his eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. "No matter what ability, there are limitations. We must find another way," Sweet whispered. His own family's blood curse is also very powerful. But the use of blood curses comes at the cost of their own blood. The more blood curses are used, the weaker they will become. The same is true for Professor Adams's curse immunity ability. Maureen also found something wrong. At first, when Lucas's spells hide him, it didn't hurt, but gradually those spells began to make his skin feel stinging, as if countless small stones were hitting him. It is obvious that this is because Professor Adams's ability is fading. If this continues, Professor Adams will be exhausted and faint sooner or later. Once Professor Adams falls, the three of them will be at the mercy of others. I know your weakness. I wonder how long you can hold on. Both the old witch and Lucas understand this truth. They just keep casting magic from a distance to wear down Professor Adams' body, but they don't get close to Professor Adams. The two of them use magic to delay time more than enough. On the other side, the spells cast by Floyd and Helena made all kinds of violent roars above the stone platform. Helena was too powerful, and he needed to concentrate all his attention to avoid being knocked down by Helena. He had no way to spare his mind to protect Maureen and the others. Professor, hold on a little longer. Maureen was not far from the stone archway. Now he was the only one with a magic wand in his hand, but his spells could not deal with Lucas and the old witch at all. No matter what spells he used, they were easily offset by the two. He simply stuffed the magic wand to Doi. Doi, deal with him. Doi jumped off Maureen's shoulder and disappeared on the stone platform. Lucas and the old witch could not see Doi. They were not clear about Doi's actions, but they had learned their lesson. They were knocked to the ground by spells from all directions just now. Now they would not give him another chance. Both of them propped up a transparent magic barrier around them, which was enough to block most of the spells. Sweet, help me, take down the black cube. Maureen shouted a curse and asked Doi to deal with Lucas from the dark bushes. At the same time, he reached out to fiddle with the black cube on the stone arch and took it down with great effort. Sweet grabbed Professor Adams' arm with one hand and reached out to the black cube on the stone arch with the other hand. The two of them quickly took down the 4 black cubes at the bottom, but they couldn't reach the black cubes at the top because they were too high. However, at this moment, there was a loud bang in the distance, and a figure retreated quickly and landed on the stone platform. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Professor Binns landed on the stone platform. His body did not look as solid as before, but began to become illusory. Old man, your magic is running out. Pyong floated over from a distance coldly. He didn't look very good. 3 frames had been broken. The canvas was originally transparent, but now it was full of cracks. Even his arm was almost broken. Damn it. Professor Binns cast another gray spell, but this time Pyong at least easily offset Professor Binns' spell. Thanks to Helena, I know how to deal with you, otherwise I would have fallen today. Pyong said coldly. Professor Binns' strength far exceeded his imagination. After all, he was the only one of the 12 families who survived to this day. Even if he was just a ghost, he still suffered a lot by relying on the power of the black magic cube. At this time, Pyong was using a paintbrush to repair his body. Being injured by Professor Binns' magic could not be restored by relying on the rules in the painting. Maureen and Sweet were struggling to pull out the 6th black cube. They were about to take it down. But Pyong soon saw the actions of Maureen and Sweet, and he shouted angrily, "Stop it!" Pyong fired a sharp explosion spell. Professor Binns wanted to resist, but Pyong's spell passed through Professor Binns and hit Maureen. This time, Pyong's spell was no longer completely eliminated by Professor Adams, but a strong force acted on Maureen. Maureen felt like he was hit in the chest by a big hammer. He didn't hold Professor Adams firmly, and the whole person crashed into the stone arch uncontrollably. The curtain above the stone arch floated over, and Maureen passed through the curtain and fell into the stone arch. No, Maureen! And Rand screamed in panic. Chapter 485 Death. The moment Maureen fell into the stone arch, everyone's face changed. Even Pyong was no exception, because Maureen was the key figure to open the stone arch. If he fell into the stone arch, his plan would not be able to proceed. Maureen. Professor Adams wanted to hold Maureen, but he was still a step late. Maureen seemed to have passed through a hazy water curtain, and the whole person became illusory. Sweet did not hold Maureen, and Rand wanted to rush over, but was stopped by Sweet. No, I want to pull Maureen back. And Rand said anxiously. The stone arch is very dangerous, you can't go in. Sweet shook his head. The moment Maureen fell into the stone arch, He felt as if something was trying to break free from his body, as if his soul could not stabilize in his body, and the whole person was a little ethereal. What is this? Maureen felt as if he couldn't use his strength, and the waves were rippling all around, as if he was in the water. He was floating with the waves, and then he felt a sense of relief, as if going on was the most correct choice. This feeling, is it death? Maureen didn't know. Many scenes flashed through his mind, as if the memories of his life were playing backwards in front of him, and time seemed to be going backwards. It started from when he fell into the stone arch, then came to Hogwarts, and then returned to his bedroom. Helena came to find him, and he told Alton that he was having a nightmare. He and Sweet were very angry when they saw Floyd being captured by the Aurors. He and Anarin and Grandpa were laughing in the fantasy park. Alton bought a ticket to the Dumbledore Cup just to watch him for 10 minutes to encourage him. The first time he saw Anarin's joyful mood, the terrifying power in the painting broke out to drive away Pyangad, was teased by Arnok, and wandered around with the grandpa. The things he experienced in his life were slowly turning back, and many scenes just passed by vaguely. It seemed that only the things that really impressed him would be displayed in detail in front of him, and then he saw a very strange picture. In that memory, everything was golden, and in this golden color, it seemed as if something horrible had turned into scarlet blood and was jumping in front of his eyes. He couldn't see anything clearly, only vague shouts from nowhere, and there was a lot of noise all around him. He actually felt fear and helplessness. Maureen never remembered this memory, nor did he remember where he had experienced this kind of thing. It seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember it. He wanted to scream, but found that he couldn't. When did this happen? Maureen was puzzled in the floating state. He felt that his body was very tired, and his consciousness wanted to get rid of his body. Maybe this is death, a road of no return. Maureen couldn't help but think. But he still had a lot of things to do, and Maureen was reluctant to go on like this. He wanted to struggle back to his body, but he couldn't completely control it. He looked in the direction he had come in from. It had become an illusory white exit. He could vaguely see Anran trying to pull him in front of the stone archway, and he could also see Sweet holding Anran, Professor Adams's frightened eyes, Pyangard's angry look, and the sigh in Professor Bin's eyes. But the people outside were motionless, as if time had stopped, maintaining that one movement, and not even blinking. Only Maureen continued to float backwards, only he could move, and it seemed that he was the only one left in the world. Time, will it really stop when you die? Maureen felt very novel. It turned out that death was not scary. What was scary was that he was afraid to face death. Come here, child. There is no pain here, only happiness. A light call came from a distant place behind him, as if across a vast valley. The voice was ethereal and kind, echoing in his ears, making him feel very warm. He turned his head to look at where he was going. There seemed to be many figures waving at him, but there was a thin layer of fog on these people. It seemed that he could only see them through this layer of fog. Should I go on? Maureen was thinking. Or should I turn back? If I turn back, will I become a ghost like Helena and Professor Binns? The voices behind him were calling Maureen. There was light and sunshine there, everything was harmonious, there was no difficulty or sorrow, only flowers and applause. Maureen was in a dilemma for a while. He seemed to have a sense of powerlessness in his heart. This might be the choice, Helena said. If you choose to go on and keep going, you may not be able to turn back. The concerns in his heart are not worth mentioning compared to the beautiful world behind him. Going back will only make people painful. Becoming a ghost, he can only watch familiar relatives and friends gradually die, watch his grandfather, watch Enron, and watch those he cares about slowly grow old, but he can't do anything about it. Just like Helena, who became a ghost and wandered for 1,000 years, finally regretted it and planned to let the stone arch open to give her another chance to choose. Maureen's consciousness was about to leave his body. His feet had lost feeling, his upper body began to stiffen, and the blood in his body seemed to stop flowing. Should I go back? Maureen was thinking. It seemed that he couldn't stop Pyangad if he went back. A ghost couldn't do anything. Should I go on? The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen turned around and looked at the person behind the fog. That world full of hope, a world that made people unwilling to turn back, seemed to have a better journey waiting for him. Maureen remembered a sentence that he had seen in the book biography of Dumbledore that Headmaster Dumbledore said. For a clear-headed person, death is just another great adventure. Is that right? Maureen pondered over this sentence. When he was in school, he had to deal with many trivial matters every day, endless homework, endless conversations with Hugo, and troubles everywhere. It seemed that he had no time to really think. But in the process of death, time seemed to have stopped for him. He could think about the problems that he had never cared about before and think about all the things that he had not figured out. If I leave like this, will Grandpa be very sad? Maureen thought of Alton, who loved him the most in the world. He didn't want to see his grandfather sad. Will Anran be sad? Maureen thought of the feeling of his heart beating faster for Anran. He liked to do homework and eat with Anran. He felt a little embarrassed. My life has just begun, and it's going to end. Isn't it a pity? Maureen looked at the motionless person outside the stone archway. He felt very unwilling. I can still choose, right? Maureen thought for a century. He thought about everything thoroughly. This was a magical experience. He thought about a lot of boring things, and even thought about what would happen if a spoonful of salt was added to the strawberry cream dessert in the Diagon Alley ice cream shop. Death may be another great adventure. Maureen thought, and he looked up at and ran outside the stone archway. But my adventure is not over yet. Maureen thought, and he began to struggle. He had to go back, and he had to go back intact. He had to go back to his body. But this process was very difficult. His body was completely numb, and he felt that he was willing but unable to do it. But at this moment, a black light shone from his chest again. This black light was very strange and a little gloomy, but it seemed to pull his drifting consciousness down and back into his body. A strange and huge black shadow jumped out of his chest. This time it was not a Hufflepuff badger, nor was it a cute or irritable boy, but something else that Maureen had never seen before. Going home for the new year, there are many things to do, and the update time is not fixed. I can only guarantee 2 updates a day. Happy New Year everyone! If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 486 Black Flame. This is a majestic and huge black bear. It growled in a low voice and looked very ferocious. Its claws flashed with sharp light, which made people shudder. Even Maureen couldn't help shivering. He had never seen such a thing before. Where did this black bear come from? The badger of Hufflepuff was a form of a patroness. It looked gentle and pleasant, and its whole body was white. But this black bear flashed with violent black aura all over its body, not like a patroness. But Maureen felt that this black bear looked familiar, as if he had seen this black bear somewhere. Where? Maureen couldn't remember. But he found that his body had gradually regained consciousness. Not only that, the black bear seemed to be attached to him, making him strong and terrible. Some power in his body was gradually awakening. Being pulled by this black bear, he became very irritable. The hazy water patterns around him seemed to be dispersed by his power. He began to walk back. He wanted to leave this place, leave the stone arch, and go out to find Pettingade. We have to stop him, Maureen said in a low voice. The voice was very unfamiliar and full of murderous anger, but he didn't care. He jumped through the stone archway and soon broke through the vague black curtain of the stone archway, stepped out of the stone archway, and landed on the stone platform. Wow! A strange wave spread out from the stone archway as the center, and the stagnant time began to move. Everyone was able to move again. Death left Maureen's body, but he became manic and restless. Molin, are you okay? Anran exclaimed. Everyone felt incredible. They didn't notice that time had stopped, and they didn't know what Maureen had experienced. They only saw Maureen fall into the stone archway, but suddenly walked out of it full of anger. But Maureen at this time was completely different from the Maureen they knew. Swish! Doy had jumped from under the stone platform, and the magic wand was back in Maureen's hand. Maureen had no time to respond to them. He just looked at Pettingade. Some of the power in his body couldn't wait to find a place to vent, and the target of this venting must be Pettingade. This kind of magic, the Invisible Man, the Walker family, as expected. Professor Binns on the side seemed to remember something, with an incredible expression. He seemed to understand the source of Maureen's magic, and then a trace of doubt appeared in his eyes. But the stone arch behind him suddenly burst out with a white light again. This light was extremely dazzling and directly illuminated the entire school. Pettingade showed ecstasy on his face. It's actually opened. You actually opened the stone arch in this way. Helena on the side was also very excited. She waved a white spell, forced Floyd back, and murmured, "The stone arch is opened." The opportunity to choose, she actually rushed towards the stone arch regardless of everything. Helena. Professor Binns looked at the dazzling white light, which shone on his body, making him almost invisible. He found something, his face suddenly changed, and he shouted, "Helena, come back, this is not the door to go down." But Helena didn't listen to Professor Binns' warning at all. She just wanted to give herself another chance to choose. This time she wanted to choose to continue walking, unwilling to be a ghost who couldn't walk in the world. The white light of the stone arch had swallowed Helena, and no one was able to stop her. The moment she entered the stone arch, her whole body trembled slightly, as if she saw something, and her eyes showed fear. But the white light had already pulled her into the stone arch, but the black magic cube in her body did not follow in, but fell off and hung on the stone platform in front of the stone arch. Alice. Professor Binns sighed heavily, as if he regretted the wrong decision Helena made. After all, he had watched Helena grow up over the years, and he didn't want Helena to go astray like this. But Pying didn't care what happened to Helena. There was a hint of enthusiasm in his eyes. When the stone arch opened, he seemed to see hope. A strange blush appeared on his sick face. "It's open. Rules, order." Ha ha ha. Pying laughed. His purpose was different from Helena's. It didn't look like he wanted to enter the stone arch. He just wanted the stone arch to be opened, nothing more. Maureen stared at Pying closely, his eyes flashing with two different lights, one blue and one green. "I will never allow you to make trouble here." Maureen raised his wand. He was shrouded in a black air. The black air swayed, and it seemed to be in the form of a black bear, roaring on him, trying to tear Pying in front of him, which was frightening. The flames are raging. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. Maureen waved his wand, but what shot out from the tip of his wand was not a blazing golden flame, but a strange black fire. This flame roared in the air and rolled towards Pying. At the moment the flame hit, Pying's smile suddenly froze. "What is this? How could it be? How did you suddenly have this ability?" Even Pying felt a suppressed and threatening aura from the flame. He quickly retreated, and the magic wand sprayed out an invisible wind blade, trapping Maureen's black flame in it. But Maureen's black flame was not suppressed this time. The flames turned around and directly broke through Pying's spell, completely igniting all the magic he created. And this flame also flew along the path of the wind prisoner dragon magic and rushed towards Pying. Pying, who was targeted by the black flame, changed his face. If it was ignited by this flame, I'm afraid his wand would be burned to ashes. He immediately cut off his magic and blocked the spread of the black flames. He turned his magic wand in front of him, and a huge vortex formed in front of him. The black flames were swallowed by the vortex. This was a very powerful method of Pying. He was best at painting magic. He could use paintings to transfer other people's magic to another painting. In the world of the painting, even if the magic was rampant, it would not cause any harm to him. Last time, he dealt with Maureen's raging flames in this way. Those flames could only burn in the painting, but could not burn in reality. But Maureen's magic wand spun quickly, and a dark black vortex was swung in front of him. He shouted in a low voice, "Spell leap!" Swish! The black flames transferred to the painting by Pying had disappeared, and when they appeared again, they were behind Pying. Chapter 487 Determination. Pying had never expected that Maureen would cast such a strange spell, and forcibly transfer the black flame out of the painting and behind him. Pying's reaction speed was very fast. The moment the black flame just poked its head out of the air, he had already turned quickly, and a huge paintbrush was waving through the air. There seemed to be a rippling water pattern in the air, which wrapped up the black flame again. The whole space seemed to be cut open by this huge paintbrush, making a bursting whistling sound. Then something seemed to move sideways in the air. The area within a radius of 2 meters where the black flame was located was like a piece of paper. It was cut off and turned into a piece of drawing paper by Pying, and the black flame also became a part of the painting. Pying's painting magic was also very powerful. His paintbrush had the ability to draw a prison on the ground. Any area circled by the paintbrush would directly become a painting and become a part of the painting. "Don't think you can avoid it like this," Maureen shouted. His wand had once again spurted out a stream of black flames, which danced in front and entered the black vortex. Then, The air around Pying Aid was filled with black flames, which swirled and surrounded Pying Aid's retreat. Damn, where did this kid's magic come from? Pying Aid gritted his teeth and swung his brush again. This time, he turned the space around him into a canvas, avoiding the attack of the black smoke, and he had already jumped into the eye under his feet and disappeared into the eye. Before being ignited by the black flames, Pying Aid's eyes had been completely closed and spread out all of a sudden. A huge cold eye appeared again in the night sky not far away, and Pying Aid emerged from the eye. What a tricky magic! Pying Aid frowned. He didn't need to be afraid of Maureen's magic, but he was confined in the painting and had just fought with Professor Binns. The magic consumption was huge, and for a while he couldn't find a way to deal with Maureen's black flames. I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such ability. Pying Aid stared at Maureen coldly. Maureen frowned. The power in his body was exerted by the black bear covering his body. The violent nature of the black bear made his power even more violent. This black bear did not belong to him at all. It seemed that it was just something hidden in his body by others. But who would put such a strange black bear shadow in his body? Maureen did not continue to attack Pying Aid. He lowered his head as if he was thinking about something. At this time, Maureen felt that the black bear in his body began to become a little disordered, and the power began to fade. The power of the black bear seemed to have reached its end and could no longer be maintained. The light and shadow that permeated Maureen's body also slowly annihilated. No, I haven't killed this guy yet. Get up, don't sleep. Maureen shook his wand. When the black bear faded, the uncontrollable power in his body actually subsided again. Maureen tried desperately to swing the same flame, but the magic in his body seemed to be drained and could not be condensed. Last time in the painting, when the power was dormant, Maureen would conjure up a lot of dragon flame cold repellent to stimulate it, but now he was not in the painting, and he did not have a drop of dragon flame cold repellent, and he could not raise that magic anymore. Although Pying Aid was extremely embarrassed by Maureen's attack, he also discovered Maureen's abnormality. Are you powerless? Pying Aid sneered. I think even you may not be able to fully control this power. How can you fight me now? Maureen suddenly raised his head and looked at Pying Aid in surprise. What? Do you still want to make a meaningless resistance? Pying Aid had already raised his magic wand. No. Maureen said sincerely, but I think you are on fire. On fire. Pying Aid was startled, and suddenly found that the huge eyes under his feet had something strange. He looked down and his face suddenly changed. At some point, the pair of eyes under his feet were stained by the black flames. At this time, they were burning rapidly, igniting the entire huge eye. Pying Aid stood on the eyes and was trapped in the middle of the black flames. Damn it! Pying Aid was furious. He knew that he had not escaped fast enough and was caught up by Maureen's black flames. Now the black eyes were completely burning, and the huge paintbrush was also burned to pieces by the black flames. Pying Aid's painting magic was broken, and even the canvas around him began to crack. He must leave here. Wait for me, the stone archway has been opened, I will find you. Pying Aid glanced coldly at the stone archway that was still emitting white light. The stone archway had been opened, and his goal had been achieved. There was no need to stay any longer. Maureen hurriedly cast a spell again, but the power of his spell this time was several levels weaker, and it was no threat to Pying Aid at all. It's over. Maureen's heart sank. But Professor Binns beside him had already started to move. I won't give you a chance to escape. Professor Binns jumped up and turned into a gray-white light and rushed towards Pying Aid. The powerful magic flashing all over his body had surrounded Pying Aid and blocked Pying Aid's escape. Old man, are you looking for death? What do you want to do? Pying Aid said in shock and anger. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. A trace of determination appeared on Professor Binns's old face, as if a ball of terrifying flame was burning. You should have obeyed the ancestral precepts and guarded the stone arch. Professor Binns had already firmly controlled Pying Aid and flew quickly towards the stone arch. He wanted to drag Pying Aid into the stone arch. Old man, you are crazy. You know what it means. You will die completely. Pying Aid roared. His purpose of opening the stone arch was not to walk into the stone arch, and he was even more unwilling to be dragged into the stone arch by Professor Binns. I have died once. Professor Binns stared at Pying Aid indifferently. Although he looked very old, he exuded an unconcealable majestic aura at this time. His death-like expression made Pying Aid completely panic. I don't mind dying once more, Professor Binns said slowly. Something seemed to be burning in his body. It was a mission and responsibility to guard the black magic cube that had been passed down for thousands of years. It was like a mountain that could not be shaken. There was an alien among the descendants of the 12 families. If he wanted to open the stone arch, he had to eliminate this person, even if it meant sacrificing his own soul. Pying Aid struggled desperately, trying to travel to other paintings. But Professor Binns was also quite familiar with the abilities of the Pying Aid family. He would not give Pying Aid any chance to perform his magic. He relied on the remaining magic of the black magic cube to tie Pying Aid up tightly. Buzz! A terrifying wave came from the stone arch again, and the figures of the two people were soon swallowed up by the dazzling white light. No. Pying Aid was unwilling to let out a shrill roar, but his voice became increasingly distant in the stone arch until it disappeared. Snap! The black magic cube on Professor Binns' body fell from midair, rolled twice on the ground, and then fell into silence. Chapter 488, Infirmary in the Morning. Professor Binns. Maureen stared at Professor Binns and Pying disappearing in the white light. He couldn't help because the magic power in his body had already been exhausted. No one expected that at the last moment, Professor Binns would choose to die together and drag Pying into the stone arch. As the oldest professor at Hogwarts, Professor Binns has countless students and his courses are the most boring. Everyone originally thought that he was just an old ghost who was obsessed with his teaching. In his class, everyone usually lay on the desk. However, no one knew that Professor Binns actually hid such an unknown identity. He lived in the era of the 4 founders of the school. He stayed not to teach, but to protect the stone arch. The old witch and Lucas saw that Pying disappeared in the white light, and their faces changed drastically. They were no longer in the mood to stay, and waved their wands and fled into the darkness. Stop, you two still want to escape. Floyd had already reacted. Pying was dragged into the stone archway, but there were 2 minions outside, framing him to be imprisoned. He would never let these 2 people go. A red light enveloped Floyd. Under the blessing of the blood curse, he disappeared from the spot and rushed towards the old witch and Lucas. Maureen ignored the old witch and Lucas. He was about to collapse and felt that his legs were as heavy as if they were filled with lead. But the stone archway was still flashing a dazzling white light, and he had to close the stone archway. He walked to the front of the stone archway with great effort, bent down and picked up the black magic cube that fell from Helena and Professor Binns. Then he raised his wand and barely cast a levitation spell to take a stone from under the stone platform. He used stones as a cushion to take down all the black cubes on the stone arch. After doing all this, his eyelids became heavier and heavier, and he felt that the white light of the stone arch was becoming more and more blurred. His head had completely sunk down. Go inform Principal McGonagall, Maureen said vaguely to Sweet, and then fell in front of the stone arch. There was a golden color in front of him, as if he was in a golden flame, but from time to time there was a kind of scarlet blood floating by. There were many people shouting in the distance. He stood in this golden and red place, looking so lonely and helpless. Where am I? Maureen looked at this familiar scene and couldn't help but murmured. Soon he remembered that at the moment he fell into the stone arch, all the memories of his short life seemed to be played back like a movie, but only this memory appeared suddenly. He had never had this memory before, and didn't understand why he had such a strange memory when he was about to die. But soon the noise seemed to become real, as if someone was whispering in his ear, something was pressing on his chest, and some figures were walking back and forth. He opened his eyes, and the first ray of sunlight in the morning shone on his eyes. Although it was warm, it was dazzling, and he couldn't help but close them again. After he got used to the light, he opened his eyes again. Day was sleeping on his chest. He looked at the clean white roof, and he suddenly realized where he was. In the school infirmary. He struggled to sit up, but what he saw was Arnok's clear blue eyes. He shuddered. Arnok actually appeared in the school. Arnok, right. The stone archway, I forgot to close it, I have to go and close it quickly, Maureen said impatiently. Don't worry, I've closed it. Arnok waved his hand and blinked his playful eyes again. Maureen found that he could see his reflection in Arnok's clear eyes. That's great. Maureen breathed a sigh of relief. You almost scared me, kid. Arnok said unhappily, you have too many secrets in your body. If you can't control them well, I'm afraid there will be big problems. I was careless and shouldn't have let you take care of this matter. Maureen looked at Arnok and felt more at ease. As long as Arnak was there, the stone arch and Piingad seemed not worth mentioning. It's okay, I'm used to it. It's always my bad luck. Maureen sat up from the bed and turned his head to look at the bed next to him. He found Inran was on the bed next to him, already asleep, with an extremely pale face. Maureen's heart was tightened again. Inran, Arnak, how is she? Piingad used her blood to repair the damaged stone arch, Maureen asked anxiously. It's okay, I've checked her. Her own healing ability is very strong, but she is a little anemic. I gave her a blood replenishing potion, but there are side effects. She has to sleep all day. Arnak said. That's good. Maureen nodded and turned to the other bed, where Sweet was lying, also looking unconscious. Floyd was sitting beside Sweet's bed. His face was very pale, perhaps because he had used too many blood spells, and he had lost a lot of blood, and he looked very tired. He saw Maureen wake up and smiled at Maureen, and Maureen found that his eyes were full of bloodshot. Have Lucas and the old witch been caught? And, have the principal and the others come back? Maureen asked again. The latest novels are first published on 6th Book Bar on September 9th. Clive caught Lucas, but let Moira escape. It doesn't matter, I will deal with this old woman. Headmaster McGonagall and the others are outside, probably investigating the chaotic scene, but I suggested that she wait until you wake up and figure out everything before contacting the Ministry of Magic. I don't trust the people in the Ministry of Magic about this kind of thing. Arnold put his hand on his chin, turned his eyes, and whispered, Are you okay? I think so. Maureen grinned and turned his arm, which made a creaking sound. I feel like I can still dance or something. Arnold became serious rarely. What I mean is Clive told me about what happened inside your body. You fell into the stone arch last night and came back intact. This I also want to ask you, what happened? I thought you could not come back after falling into the stone arch. Do you know something? Maureen asked. I don't know. Arnak shook his head. This is a bit unbelievable. No one can walk back directly after falling into the stone arch. It is a door that cannot be turned back, not even invisible people. Generally speaking, only ghosts can walk back. Maureen opened his mouth slightly. He quickly reached out and poked Arnak's arm, and then patted Arnak's palm. What? Arnak asked. I'm going to try to see if I'm a ghost. Maureen muttered. Nonsense, of course you're not a ghost. Why are you still stupid? Arnak reached out and flicked Maureen's forehead. It hurts. Maureen covered his forehead. It's right to hurt, it means you're still alive, you're always so thicko, thank you, but I found an opponent last night. You praised me for being thick-skinned, and I'll feel guilty in the future I'm not praising you. Arnak said unhappily, frowning, as if thinking about something. Maureen remembered something and asked again, by the way, Arnold, you said that ghosts can come back from the stone archway, so can Professor Binns come back? And what about Piingad? Chapter 489 Magic Rules. Arnak was silent for a moment, and said, I'm not sure about this matter, you were beaten into the stone arch by Piingad, and you accidentally opened the stone arch, and some rules are messed up. What rules? Maureen didn't quite understand. In addition, why did Piingad open the stone arch? I thought he wanted to lead something from the stone arch, but he didn't seem to have this intention. His purpose was just to open the stone arch. Arnak said simply. Open the stone arch? That's it. Maureen was surprised. That's it. What do you think the stone arch is like? It's not a passage or something, leading to the world of the dead, or opening the door to the abyss world. Oh yes, last time I was thinking whether Piingad wanted to open the stone arch, use some means to revive those dead black wizards, and then control them to do bad things. Maureen said seriously. Where do you get so many messed up ideas? Arnak wanted to talk to Maureen seriously about this matter, but he was amused by Maureen's seriousness and soon shook his head. It is unlikely to revive the dead with a stone arch. The stone arch does not lead to the abyss. Piingad is not that capable. Not releasing monsters from the abyss, nor resurrecting the dead? Then what is he going to do? Just open the stone arch. Maureen's mind was even more confused. The rules I have been mentioning to you, don't you care about this thing? Rules. He opened the stone arch just to break some magic rules. You can think of the stone arch as a powerful magic seal. Magic seal. Maureen blinked. He had heard Arnak hear a lot of magic seals before, such as sealing some difficult-to-kill dark magic creatures in a book, or containing the black magic cube on something. Last summer, He followed Arnok to the dark magic item warehouse at the Ministry of Magic. The dark magic items in the warehouse were guarded by powerful spells, and those guarding spells were equivalent to magic seals. The seal of the stone arch is very strange, so strange that you can't imagine it. Do you think the 12 black cubes are just the keys to open the stone arch? Maureen wanted to say yes, but he remembered that Payengate had told him a few hours ago that the black cube was not just a key. Now that Arnok said so again, he was embarrassed to make a blind guess. 12 black cubes mean 12 magic rules. These magic rules are very dangerous and can easily subvert some cognitions of the magic world. The existence of the stone arch is to seal these 12 magic rules. Do you understand? Maureen tilted his head, thought for a moment, and said honestly, I don't quite understand. Why are you so stupid? Arnok looked around and saw Floyd was also listening carefully. He asked Floyd, do you know about magic rules? Arnok, I know a little, but do you think it's okay to tell this to a child? He is still young now. We should wait until he is older so that he can understand. Floyd seemed to respect Arnok very much. He understood that the mysterious old man in front of him was extremely extraordinary, especially when he didn't know how to close the stone arch last night, and it was Arnok who ran over and closed the stone arch. This silly boy is different, he is special. Arnok pouted, he snapped his fingers, cast a magic to prevent eavesdropping, and then continued, in short, I will just explain it simply, there are many rules in this world. He turned his head back and looked at Maureen, who was listening carefully. For example, if you throw an iron ball, the iron ball will definitely fall from the air. This is the rule of Muggles, and we can use a levitation spell to prevent it from falling. This is our magic rule. But our magic also has many restrictions. You have learned a lot of basic rules in books, such as Gamp Transfiguration. Maureen was already very familiar with the 5 exceptions to Gamp's Transfiguration law, and he could even recite it backwards. Arnok continued, food cannot be conjured out of thin air, you can't turn a sparrow into a real phoenix, you can only change the appearance of a phoenix, but it will not have the ability of a phoenix, etc. These are basic magic rules. Maureen nodded thoughtfully. But there are 12 extremely dangerous magic rules. They were discovered by some clever wizards when magic was just beginning, but they also triggered a series of disasters and almost destroyed the entire world. Arnok tapped the bedsheet lightly with his fingers, thought for a moment, and said, so 1,000 years ago, 12 powerful wizards united and used the stone arch to seal these 12 magic rules in the black magic cube. As long as one of the black magic cubes touches the stone arch, combined with the magic on the black magic cube, it is enough to unlock one of the seals. A flash of inspiration came to Maureen's mind, and he suddenly realized, I seem to understand, the magic rule. Helena has always said that she wants to give herself a new choice, but once the ghost chooses to stay, there is no turning back. This is a magic rule, this is the magic rule that Helena wants to unlock, right? The latest novel is published first on Liu 9 Shuba. Yet, not so stupid. Arnok nodded approvingly, you are right. After death, people have a chance to choose whether to continue to move forward or to choose to wander helplessly in this world. No matter which choice is made, it cannot be changed. This magic rule is sealed in the stone arch. She regrets it now. If she wants to move on, she has to unlock the seal of this magic rule. After unlocking this magic rule, it seems that there is no more. And said curiously, I mean, there is nothing wrong with giving ghosts the opportunity to choose to go back and forth. The consequences are serious. Arnok emphasized, after people die, they have places to go. Ghosts can travel between these two worlds at will, causing congestion here. This is secondary, but there are many dangerous existences there. Once they come over, it will cause great chaos in the world. Maureen was surprised, are you referring to the monsters in the abyss? Is the abyss world the place for the dead? That's not the case. I can't explain the abyss, but it's not the world of the dead. The world of the dead is more vast and huge. It's beyond your imagination. Some of the existences there are more terrifying than the monsters in the abyss. After a pause, Arnok said, that's really terrifying. Maureen couldn't imagine the definition of the word terrible mentioned by Arnok. Seeing that Arnok was so serious, he asked, did Helena break the magic rule? Chapter 490 Soul Magic. Probably not. Floyd said beside him, I don't think Professor Binns's reaction is likely. He is one of the people who sealed the 12 magic rules and knows this best. When Helena saw the stone archway open, she couldn't wait to rush into the stone archway and make the so-called second choice, but Professor Binns shouted to stop her. Professor Binns said that it was not the door to go down. No one knows what door it is, but if it is what Professor Binns said, it is probably right. This cannot be confirmed yet. I didn't think that Professor Binns was Cuthbert himself at first. I should ask him, but there is no way now. We have to check it ourselves. Arnak then took out a black magic cube. Maureen recognized that the pattern at the bottom of the black magic cube belonged to the Cuthbert family. Professor Binns fell into deep sleep, in this box. Arnak said. Maureen looked at Arnak in surprise and asked impatiently, Professor Binns fell into a deep sleep? Didn't he fall into the stone arch? Although Professor Binns's class was boring, what happened last night made Maureen respect the old professor. If it weren't for Professor Binns holding back peeing, Maureen would have no chance of winning. Arnak crossed his fingers, thought for a while, and said, I don't know how to explain this problem, but among the 12 people, only Professor Binns stayed as a ghost for a reason. This is his special ability, soul-level magic. Soul-level magic. Maureen felt particularly fresh. If it weren't for Professor Binns's great power last night, he didn't know that ghosts could use such powerful magic, so powerful that even old demons like Pinged were afraid of it. Your vision of magic is still too narrow. All 12 people have very powerful magic abilities. Whether it's this red-eyed guy or the fat guy over there who can resist magic but can't use it, everyone's ability is unique. Arnak spoke very bluntly. Floyd smiled awkwardly. He was called the red-eyed guy by Arnak, but he didn't dare to complain at all. He knew very well that the old and frivolous gentleman in front of him had much higher magic than him. Maureen saw Professor Adams, who was called the fat man by Arnak, lying on another bed. He seemed to be exhausted and was snoring slightly at this time, sleeping soundly. Professor Adams's ability to resist spells last night made him feel incredible. If it weren't for the Adams professor who blocked so many spells for them, there would be basically no later. So Professor Binns' ability is to use magic in the soul state? But I remember Helena can also use soul magic. She had a fierce fight with Mr. Floyd last night. Maureen looked at Floyd with admiration. Floyd was also a very powerful wizard. If this tired-looking man fought without scruples, he could face 20 Aurors alone without taking a breath. Helena is the daughter of Ravenclaw and doesn't know soul magic, but she must have learned how to use the power of the black cube from Professor Binns before. After all, Professor Binns and Helena have been in school for so many years, and Professor Binns is Helena's elder. It is normal for him to teach her some self-defense magic. Yes, her ability comes from the black cube. I understand this very well. Floyd interrupted. Professor Binns' soul magic was the most terrifying when he was alive. He should have been a wizard who studied souls and ghosts. His magic and body both carried the characteristics of the soul. His spells could penetrate anything, including spells. Even if Professor Binns cast a simple stunning spell, most Aurors couldn't block it and could only dodge. Just think about how bad it was. Arnak explained. How exactly does it work? When two wizards are fighting, you cast a stunning spell, and I can use another stunning spell or other spells to counteract it, but you can't counteract Professor Binns' spell, just like a shadow. For example, your afterimage is visible. You also know that I can do this magic? Maureen asked curiously. When he was studying time and space magic this school year, Arnak was not there. The me in the painting told me. Didn't you discuss it with him? Arnak waved his hand. The spells cast by you created in the afterimage are all fake. They can't be blocked, and can't hurt anyone, but Professor Binns' spells are like this. They can't be blocked, but they can hurt you. Maureen opened his mouth in surprise. When he fought with the old witch last night, he created many of himself. Although the spells cast by these fake selves look very real, they had no lethality at all, just a cover. Unexpectedly, Professor Binns' spells could not be blocked and could hurt people, just like the long-armed bat that came out of the black cube and the Dumbledore cup. Very special. It's far more than that. As far as I know, this person's spells can also pass through walls and cause harm to people behind the walls. Ordinary spells hitting walls can only break the walls at most. In addition, when he's alive, he can also transform his body into a soul. Some spells will directly pass through his body without causing any harm to him. Isn't that too invincible? Maureen exclaimed. He looked at Professor Adams again. This is simply an enhanced version of Professor Adams. Professor Adams is immune to any magic, but he can't use magic. Professor Binns, to some extent, is immune to magic, but can use magic. He is different from this silly fat professor. Arnold looked at Professor Adams with interest. This person's ability is very interesting. After awakening, even Avada Kedavra can't kill him. If possible, I will study it in the future. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Arnott continued, the spells that Professor Binns can resist are limited. Some powerful magic can still hurt him. I think Helena must know Professor Binns' weakness. Professor Binns regards Helena as a trustworthy junior, but Helena betrayed him. That's why Payengard has the opportunity to fight against Professor Binns. Arnott fiddled with a black cube in his hand and looked at the sunlight. The sunlight shining on the black cube was dim. Maybe this box accidentally saved his life. I think he's luckier than Helena. Helena fell into the stone arch, but Professor Binns was dragged into the black cube because of his special soul ability. It depends on when he can wake up. He is a very special ghost. When he wakes up, he should be able to continue to guard the stone arch. Arnott said. Helena wanted to open the stone arch because she stole the Ravenclaw crown before and was afraid to face her mother. She didn't see Ravenclaw for the last time before she died, and she always felt guilty. After 1,000 years of suffering, she wanted to rely on the magic rules to open the seal of the stone arch to confess to her mother. But her reckless and extreme behavior was as selfish as her willful theft of Ravenclaw's crown. She even almost harmed Professor Binns, who stayed to guard the stone arch. Maureen breathed a sigh of relief inadvertently. Professor Binns could still wake up, which was undoubtedly the best result. Then the magic rule that Helena wanted to unlock was not broken. What magic rules were broken when the stone arch was opened last night? Maureen asked hurriedly. Chapter 491, Confrontation in the School Infirmary. I'm not sure about this. I don't even fully understand the 12 magic rules. I've only studied a few of them. Arnott shook his head. But Ping only captured 5 people. Oh, yes, I threw the Clive family's black cube into the abyss, so only 4 magic rules sealed by the black cubes were broken. You can study what rules are sealed by the 4 black cubes of Ping, Brill, Adams and Ravenclaw. Maureen suggested sincerely. Arnott reached out and knocked Maureen's head. Ah. Why are you hitting me again? Maureen asked painfully. You are so ashamed to say that. If you had slept at home honestly last night, nothing would have happened. Without you, the stone archway would not have been opened at all. Arnott said angrily. How could I know that Helena would deceive me? Maureen muttered. Besides, I didn't do it to stop peeing. Wait, that's not right. This should be all your fault. Why blame me? Arnott stared at Maureen. If you had told me earlier that I could open the stone arch, I would have stayed in bed and would never come to school. Maureen said angrily. I have been investigating this matter. I found out a while ago that you are the key to opening the stone arch, but I can't come back from the abyss. You should have waited for me to come back. Arnott and Maureen stared at each other, and after a while they were discouraged again. Forget it, blame me. Blame me. I really didn't think it through and shouldn't have let you get involved in this matter. Arnott waved his hand and sighed slightly. No, it's my fault. After all, I opened the stone arch. I was reckless. Maureen touched his head. Pying Aid was too cunning. He was a restless 10-year-old boy, and he was still a little behind Pying Aid in strategy. Okay, then it's your fault. Arnott glared at Maureen again. Maureen was stunned. This change of face was too fast. Sure enough, the old ones are still the best. Never mind, the mistake has been made, there's no point blaming anyone. Even if you stayed at home last night, Pying would have found other ways to catch you. This guy is hard to guard against. I don't know if Pying is still alive. Now I can only find out which magic rules were opened last night, and then find a way to seal the magic rules again. Arnott saw a purple orange on the bedside table, so he peeled it and threw half to Maureen, then asked Floyd, do you want it? It's a refresher. Floyd hesitated for a moment and took the purple orange. He really needed to refresh himself. Maureen bit the orange and stuffed another slice into Doy's mouth. Doy was still sleeping, but when food was stuffed into its mouth, it could chew instinctively. This little guy can eat in his sleep, which is amazing. But when Doy was whizzing with Maureen's wand last night, he did a good job. Maureen asked, by the way, Arnott, why can I open the stone arch? Is it because I am invisible? What exactly is an invisible man? Can you tell me now? Do you really want to know? Arnott looked at Maureen meaningfully. Look at my expression. Don't you want to know? Maureen said sincerely. Okay, I just investigated this matter. I didn't know what invisible people meant before, but now I understand a little. When Arnok was about to explain, the door of the school infirmary was opened and a figure hurriedly walked in. When Floyd saw this person, he stood up quickly, and his pale face became more uneasy. The person who came in was Professor Francis. Professor, wait a minute. Maureen remembered that Floyd was now a fugitive, and for Sweet, he stayed in school. None of your business, sit still. Professor Francis waved his wand coldly, making Maureen unable to get up. Hey, can't you see I'm here? Arnok snapped his fingers and removed the magic that Professor Francis had cast to restrain Maureen. Sorry, Mr. Singer, but this is between him and me, and I don't want anyone to interfere. Professor Francis rarely showed a bit of respect to Arnok. He didn't look at Arnok with a deathly gaze, and he obviously knew the famous Bobby Singer. Professor Francis turned his head, and his eyes became cold again, like a sharp blade, falling on Floyd. You've been hiding for so many years, Scarlet Hand, right? Professor Francis said. Floyd was silent for a moment, and sighed slightly. Long time no see, Francis. The Scarlet Hand that fooled the Aurors back then, do you have anything to explain? Professor Francis asked coldly. Sweet suddenly woke up at this time. He saw his father and Professor Francis. He felt that the atmosphere was not right. He immediately got up, grabbed the wand on the bedside table, and stood in front of Floyd. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. I don't allow you to touch him. Sweet pointed his wand at Professor Francis and clenched his fists. You are not allowed to catch him, Professor. Sweet. Floyd put his hand on Sweet's shoulder with a complicated look. But Sweet shook Floyd's hand away and said in a low voice, Don't touch me, I haven't forgiven you. Floyd's hand stopped in the air, and his expression was a little depressed. I just don't want him. Sweet glanced at Floyd angrily, then tightened his wand and pointed at Professor Francis. Professor, he is not Lucas. The real Lucas was caught last night. Scarlet Blood Hand, committed many evil deeds, stole other people's property, and took 7 lives. Professor Francis looked at Sweet indifferently. 7 lives? He didn't kill the people in Peter's town. Sweet said angrily. I'm not referring to that Muggle town, Sweet. Before you were born, Scarlet Blood Hand took 7 lives. Professor Francis said. What? Sweet turned to look at his father in shock. You are actually a murderer. Floyd looked away, as if he didn't want to look at Sweet. You actually killed someone. Is this the reason why you hide from us and abandon us? Sweet looked at his father angrily. I'm sorry, Sweet. Floyd sighed. I have my reasons. What reasons do you have to kill someone? Sweet growled. Floyd hesitated, shook his head and didn't answer. Killing requires a price. This is the rule. No one is an exception. Professor Francis said coldly, You should get out of the way. This is a matter between us adults, Sweet. Sweet was panting. He was angry that his father was a murderer, but he didn't move, but asked, Professor, are you going to hand him over to the Ministry of Magic? The Aurors will kill him. This is not your business. Professor Francis said with a cold look in his eyes. I have to. Sweet's eyes were red. He did this only in the hope that Nim would not lose his father like him. The wand in his hand was shaking. Whether he is a murderer or not, I will not watch him die, Professor. Chapter 492 The Unearthed Truth. Sweet, let it be as it is. I will bear the consequences. You don't need to ruin your future for me. Floyd sighed. You don't need to teach me what to do. Sweet said angrily, I'm not doing this for you, a murderer. Floyd's face turned pale. Sweet's heart seemed to be pouring out. He roared at Floyd, Before you killed someone, did you consider the feelings of me and my mother? Did you consider yourself and your wife and children? Why did you harm another Muggle woman when you knew you killed someone? You gave birth to Nim. What will happen to him in the future? He is only 7 years old. Will he be like me in the future? You destroyed 2 families. Floyd listened to Sweet's roar silently, his eyes flickering slightly, without interrupting Sweet's words, letting Sweet vent his anger. Professor Francis frowned and stared at Floyd. Why do you do this? Floyd, tell me the reason. Floyd glanced at Professor Francis, and did not answer him directly, but asked, Sweet, what kind of person do you think your mother is? She is 10,000 times better than you. She grew up with me and protected me, unlike a coward like you, who evades responsibility and harms other women. Sweet said angrily. Has she never mentioned me to you? Floyd asked disappointedly. No. You are just a coward who broke her heart. She didn't even bother to mention you, and she didn't want me to be found by you. When we were in the most difficult time, you were not there, you did nothing, you were like a coward, leaving a lot of mess. I really despise you. Sweet said angrily. Fruit's body trembled slightly, and his lips turned pale. Didn't she mention me? She didn't say anything. So that's how it is, I understand. Fruit took a deep breath and looked at Professor Francis in despair. Francis, you want to catch me, I will go with you, no matter what you do, I will not resist. Why should I catch you? Fruit, don't think I don't know about your bad things. Professor Francis asked coldly. You know. Floyd was stunned for a moment. What do you know? Are you going to keep it a secret for too long? Tell me, Floyd, is there any point in doing this? Put yourself in Azkaban. Why don't you just tell Sweet about the Scarlet Bloodhand? Why don't you just tell Sweet about the real Scarlet Bloodhand? Shut up. Floyd suddenly pulled out his wand and pointed at Professor Francis. You are not allowed to do this, Francis. You can arrest me, but you are not allowed to do this. I will never allow. Floyd hadn't used his wand just now, but because of Professor Francis' words, he became very angry and pulled out his wand. The tip of the wand was about to poke Professor Francis' chest, and sparks flew out. But Professor Francis didn't move, he still looked at Floyd indifferently. I used to be an Auror, Floyd. I track down the truth and catch criminals, not boring people. Professor Francis said impatiently, do you think you are doing this for his own good? Do you think you are so great that you can take everything on yourself? Do you think you have concealed everything perfectly? A nim, a sweet, what are you thinking? Don't say it, Francis, please, don't say it. Floyd glanced at Sweet and shook his head. Sweet must know. Professor Francis said coldly. Sweet was stunned for a moment. What must I know, Professor? Your mother is the Scarlet Bloodhand, Sweet, he just took the blame for your mother. Professor Francis said simply. The air suddenly became very quiet. This is impossible. Sweet flatly rejected it. My mother is just an ordinary wizard, how could she? I don't care what tricks you are playing, Fruit, I am only responsible for digging out the truth. Professor Francis glanced at Fruit coldly. If you did it, I won't let you go. If you didn't do it, I'm not interested in wasting my time with you. Sweet suddenly raised his head and looked at Fruit. He asked in a low voice, is this true? Fruit remained silent. When I was an Auror, I was responsible for catching Scarlet Hand. Although this person was always elusive when committing crimes and used magic to hide his true identity, it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman, but I still found some clues. When I was chasing Scarlet Hand, I found that she was pregnant. Professor Francis stared at Sweet. When a pregnant wizard casts magic, there will be special magic fluctuations. Although this breath is very weak, I know it very well. Just when I was about to catch her, I suddenly found the clue of Goodwin, so I continued to track it down, and then Scarlet Hand disappeared, and I could never find this person again. Until that day, I saw you casting magic with blood, and then I remembered this matter. I deliberately kept you that day and asked about your mother. Although you don't know what kind of person your mother is, I went to the place where you lived a few days ago and found the magic traces she left behind, and I completely found out about this matter. Sweet was stunned on the spot as if struck by lightning. How could it be? How could it be? Sweet couldn't accept it. This is the fact, Sweet. Professor Francis said coldly. After I checked, I realized that I was deceived by Floyd. They are both from the Clive family, both know the blood curse, and they are cousins. After he found out that your mother was pregnant, he took the blame for your mother and threw out the clue of Goodwin to mislead us, and then led us away, probably to protect you and your son. He fooled us Aurors. Is what he said right? Sweet looked at Floyd in a daze. Tell me, is what he said right? The latest novels are first released on 6th 9-book bar. I didn't want you to know these things. Floyd shook his head slightly. I'm sorry. I don't need this apology, I want the truth. Why don't you tell the truth? Sweet said angrily, you told the truth, and nothing will happen to you. Professor Francis said coldly at the side, don't you understand yet? Sweet, your mother is too heartless. Floyd took all the charges for your mother. He fled everywhere and didn't go to see you just to protect you, but what did you say just now? Your mother never mentioned him to you. He silently gave so much, but your mother didn't tell you the truth and kept you in the dark. She is a coward. Don't you dare say that about my mother. I don't like this kind of messed up emotion. Sweet, it's useless to yell at me. I am only responsible for the truth. If your mother were still alive, I would definitely throw her into Azkaban and would not show mercy. Professor Francis stared at Sweet coldly. Sweet suddenly became at a loss, as if all the strength in his body was drained away. He staggered 2 steps and sat on the bed. You didn't want me to know this from the beginning, right? Sweet looked at his father in despair. Floyd's hand holding the wand was shaking, and he put the wand down for a long time. Yes, I don't want you to know. Why? Because it was she who grew up with you, not me. Floyd said weakly, what's the meaning of the truth? She loves you and raises you, and you love her and regard her as everything. That's enough. I didn't fulfill my father's responsibilities. I can't help you grow up. In this case, why let her image in your mind collapse? The truth is always cruel, especially for a child who depends on his mother for life. Floyd would rather his son blame him than destroy the perfect mother in Sweet's mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 493 One Night Accident. The school infirmary was very quiet. The sunlight fell harmoniously on the floor, slowly climbing onto Floyd's body, illuminating this upright man. Sweet buried his head in his knees, closed his eyes, trembled slightly, and was somewhat overwhelmed by the sudden truth. You knew she was a murderer, why didn't you stop her? Sweet asked in a low voice. Floyd shook his head. She is a courageous person. When she was young, she liked challenges, had a flamboyant personality, and had her own pursuits and ideals. Because she inherited extraordinary abilities, she didn't want to be an ordinary person quietly. I didn't even know her at the beginning, but I accidentally learned that the ability of the Scarlet Blood Hand was the same as mine. I was curious to track down the Scarlet Blood Hand. As a descendant of the Clive family, Floyd learned that there was another distant relative who had a blood curse, and he couldn't wait to find out about it. The Aurors couldn't find her, but I could. I felt it was my responsibility to guide her back to the right path. After I found her, I was very surprised. I was amazed at how she used blood curse magic. We exchanged the power of blood curses. The magic power of blood curses is extremely special, but it is even more outstanding on her. She is a witch with extraordinary talent. We talked a lot and it seemed like we had met too late. Then, Floyd was silent for a long time, then sighed heavily. We were both very young at that time. Everyone understood what this sentence meant. She left without saying goodbye the next morning. It was not until 3 months later that she came to me and said she was pregnant with you. I was a little overwhelmed. I didn't know this would happen. I used the blood curse to confirm that the child in her belly was mine, but she was hunted by the Aurors because of her pregnancy. I knew I couldn't just sit there and watch. I could only take the blame for her and lead the Aurors away from you. Floyd said disappointedly. Sweet slowly raised his head, biting his lips until they bled. You are not married? You were together for just one night? Only one night? I was just born like that. Floyd looked at Sweet with complicated eyes, and nodded slightly after a long time. How could it be? Sweet stared at Floyd in a daze. It was actually like this? His birth was just an accident. His mother and his father only spent one night together, not even the name of husband and wife. Floyd said anxiously, but I never thought of escaping. I wanted to wait until the storm was over, then find you and take responsibility. When you were 3 years old, I went to see you, but after that, she put the pendant on me, is that right? Sweet looked at the fang pendant on the bedside table. This pendant had a very powerful magic that could make him invisible to Floyd, which also caused him not to be found by his father for so many years. This pendant belongs to the Clive family. It is very special and is used to protect people under the blood curse. But she moved away later and I can't find you anymore. Why didn't she let you find me? Sweet's voice became more and more hoarse. She is a strong-willed woman. We were only together for one night and we didn't have a deep relationship. She didn't want to rely on a child to restrict me. If it weren't for the Aurors, she wouldn't have come to seek my help. She left me a note. Floyd took out a yellowed parchment from his pocket. Floyd would not have shown this parchment to Sweet, but now there was nothing to hide. Sweet took the parchment and recognized that it was his mother's handwriting. Looking at the contents on the parchment, his face became paler and paler. Floyd said softly, She wanted me to live my own life and didn't want to disturb me. Maybe seeing you born touched her heart and she was determined to break off with her past self. She told me that after you came of age, she would go to the Ministry of Magic to explain the matter of the Scarlet Hand to me, so that I could clear my name and forget your existence. But how could I forget my child? Sweet clenched his fists, and his joints even turned white. She said it lightly, not to disturb your life? She almost ruined your life, didn't she? Professor Francis said coldly. Floyd replaced the real Scarlet Hand. The horrors of the Ministry of Magic were chasing him. How could he live a normal life? He could only rely on his magic to hide in the Muggle world, live with Muggles, and act cautiously. There was no place for him in the wizarding world. I don't mind these, Francis. Floyd shook his head. But I mind that you misled our horrors and assisted criminals, which is also illegal. Professor Francis said coldly. Floyd opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but he didn't know what to say. Sweet held the parchment tightly. He felt very uncomfortable. For so many years, he had been hating this man's cowardice, evading responsibility, abandoning his wife and children, but in the end, he found that the truth was so ridiculous. This man did not evade responsibility. On the contrary, he used his father's responsibility to help them and their son block everything. Sweet's eyes were a little confused. He didn't know who to hate. Maybe his existence was a mistake. Without him, this man could have his own future and his own place in the wizarding world. With his powerful magic ability, he was enough to make a name for himself. But an accident that night, Sweet's own existence, ruined this man's life, and he had always misunderstood this man. I'm sorry. Sweet murmured, I shouldn't say that to you. He found that his words were very weak. He said all kinds of hurtful words to this man, devaluing this man to nothing, and those words almost chilled this man's heart. How could a simple apology make up for what he had said? But Floyd was stunned for a moment. This long-lost apology made him feel as if all the sufferings of hiding from the XZ for so many years were worth it. For more than 10 years, he took on the responsibility of a father and had everywhere to take the blame, just for his children. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Sweet's understanding is precious to him. When the knot is untied, all the past seems less important. It's none of your business. You don't understand the truth. Floyd sat next to Sweet, with mixed feelings in his heart. I didn't blame her. I have always wanted to bring you home all these years, but I can't get any news from you. Sweet clenched his fists, but soon loosened them. He was very sad, not knowing for whom. The school infirmary was very quiet. No one spoke, only Professor Adams's snoring came and went. Hiding a criminal, impersonating someone else, is considered an accomplice. Floyd, you should understand that the Ministry of Magic will not let you go for this kind of crime. Professor Francis said coldly. I'm sorry, Francis. Floyd sighed. I will take responsibility for my own mistakes. You can arrest me. I have no complaints. But, Sweet raised his head. Take care of Nim for me, okay? Sweet, he is your brother. Floyd forced a smile. You returned the basketball to him. I know you will not evade the responsibility of being a brother. He will come here to study in the future. I have done something wrong. I need to bear the consequences. But Professor Francis said coldly, Sweet, take him to Professor Kane's office, where the horrors of the Ministry of Magic will not find him. Hurry up, they will come to take Lucas away in a while. Floyd was surprised. You won't arrest me. Professor Francis looked at Floyd expressionlessly. I'm no longer an horror. Your troubles have nothing to do with me. Professor Francis turned and strode out of the school infirmary. Chapter 494 Early morning. The sunlight in the school infirmary was still harmonious. Floyd had gone to Professor Kane's office with Sweet. Now only he and Arnold were left, as well as the comatose Professor Adams and Inran. Maureen lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling in a daze. Sweet had found the truth, but what about his truth? Why didn't his parents, who had been missing for several years, come back? Maureen glanced at the sunlight, which was a little dazzling, and he closed his eyes. Maybe one day, he would find his own truth, and his parents would suddenly appear in front of him, give him a surprise, hold him in their arms, and tell him that they would return to work in their country and would never leave him again. Maureen thought and smiled involuntarily. He was looking forward to that day inexplicably. He thought he was much luckier than Sweet, because he had always had a grandfather to take care of him, and he didn't have to go through so many right and wrongs. Arnold patted him and said, I'm going out for a walk. Will you come? Do you suddenly want to take a walk? Maureen asked curiously. Oh, I'm too old to bear this kind of stimulation. Let's go. Arnold stood up and walked leisurely towards the door. Maureen also got up. With Arnold's help, he was much better. He lifted the sheets and was able to jump around again. They left the school infirmary and walked down the stairs. The castle was empty. Only the people in the paintings on the wall were stretching. The early morning of the holiday was very quiet. Arnold and Maureen walked out of the castle, and the sun fell on them comfortably. Arnold said nothing, just stared into the distance, lost in thought. Maureen knew what Arnold was thinking. Arnold also had a son before, who was an invisible man like Maureen, but Evan's power went out of control. In order not to cause a disaster, he ended his life in front of Arnold. The things about Floyd and Sweet also evoked Arnold's memories. Everyone probably has their own difficulties, right? Thinking like this, Maureen suddenly found that he was not so resentful of his parents. Perhaps his parents also had their own difficulties, just like Freud. Maureen also expected his parents to come back one day and explain everything to him. Maureen and Arnold both looked at the rising sun in deep thought. For a while, neither of them spoke. After a moment, Maureen broke the silence and asked, "By the way, Arnold, what did you say the real invisible man is?" Just when Arnold was about to tell him about the invisible man, Professor Francis broke in and interrupted their conversation and did not continue. "I forgot." "You forgot?" Maureen was stunned. Arnold glanced at Maureen and chuckled, "I'm old and forgetful." "Don't joke, okay?" "No, by the way, you just said that you put the Clive family's black cube in the abyss." "Don't change the subject, everyone knows about the invisible man, the old witch, Ping, etc. Why don't I know it?" "Don't worry, they don't know more than you do. It's just a boring rumor. Everyone says you are very important, thick-skinned, and can't be predicted. What else? I like your hairstyle." Maureen was going crazy. "Don't joke, your tongue will ulcerate if you talk halfway," Maureen said. "But I like your hairstyle after being electrocuted more." Arnold rubbed Maureen's head roughly, and then Maureen's hair stood up again. He chuckled again. "This is not fun." Maureen tried his best to suppress the hair. Arnold has always kept this bad taste. Headmaster McGonagall walked towards them from the stone archway. Seeing the two people basking in the sun, her face was very tense. "Good morning, Headmaster McGonagall." Arnag greeted them cheerfully. Headmaster McGonagall pursed her lips. "You already greeted me an hour ago, Mr. Singer. It's a beautiful morning. It's not a bad thing to greet them more," Arnag said with a smile. "Yes, it's a beautiful morning, Headmaster." Maureen greeted him quickly. He was stroking his hair with his wand. Because his hair was often messed up, he had learned how to restore it. "I don't think so, Walker. This morning is not good." Headmaster McGonagall looked at Maureen coldly and glanced at the bottom of the castle. The stone archway was in a mess, with mud and flowers flying around. It was destroyed beyond recognition. The traces of the battle left last night were still preserved. This looked far from beautiful. Maureen smiled awkwardly. "The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. You never told me that you can use magic outside the school, Walker." Principal McGonagall looked at the wand in Maureen's hand. Maureen quickly put away the wand and said, "Principal, this is the school." "Then how did you get here last night? Did you walk from home? Did you apparate?" Principal McGonagall snorted coldly. Maureen tried desperately to think of an excuse in his mind and said, "I am Flu Network." But Arnok winked at Maureen playfully and said, "No need to hide it. I have told the principal. It's better to be honest now." "Oh, is that so?" Maureen was surprised, because it was Arnok who asked him to hide his ability. "Too much curiosity will kill you sooner or later, Walker. It's a miracle that you are still alive," Principal McGonagall said. Maureen didn't know how to answer, so he simply didn't answer. He just listened to the criticism carefully. It wasn't the first time that Principal McGonagall had greeted him. "That's right. You kid, I've told you so many times that you can't violate the school rules. You should stay in school during class and stay at home during holidays. You don't listen at all. Go back and reflect on yourself and write a self-criticism," Arnok said to Maureen earnestly. Maureen stared at Arnok. "I'll write to Alton. I need him to keep an eye on you during the summer vacation. The owl has been sent to notify him and he will be here soon. I also need to interrogate Lucas." "Excuse me, Mr. Singer. Principal McGonagall said and walked into the castle. Maureen waited until Principal McGonagall left before muttering in dissatisfaction, "Stay in school during class? I don't think you said that when I went to your place last year. I'm helping you out, don't you understand?" Arnok put his hands behind his back and swaggered towards the stone archway. Last night, so many powerful wizards were fighting fiercely. Various spells made the surrounding flowers, plants and trees unrecognizable. It seemed that someone had turned over the soil of the entire hillside. 2 goalposts of the Quidditch field on the other side were burned off, and the audience seats were also in ruins. That was left by the battle between Professor Binns and Paingard. However, despite this, the old stone platform and stone archway were still intact. The 2 stone archways were still overlapping at this time, but no white light was emitted. According to what Arnold said, they should be closed. The black curtain was still fluttering in the wind, alternating between illusion and reality, which looked particularly strange. "I have collected all 11 black cubes, and only the one of the Clive family is left." Arnold walked up to the stone platform, knocked on the stone archway, and then rubbed his hands and said, "Okay, we have to get back the last black cube that you threw into the abyss before the people from the Ministry of Magic come." Maureen asked in surprise, "Are we going to the abyss? Are we going now?" Chapter 495 Dig It Out. The last time Maureen saw Anik in the abyss, he thought Anik must know other ways to get there. Maybe now Anik would consider taking him there for a tour or something. After all, Anik was capable of dealing with those ferocious monsters. But Anik shook his head. "Don't bother, where did you disappear from yesterday?" Maureen pointed to the stone archway and said, "I fell from the stone archway, smashed the centaur's kerosene lamp, and went to the abyss." "Then what? Which direction did you run after you fell to the ground?" Anik continued to ask. "How do I know this? This is not the abyss," Maureen said. "Just treat this as the abyss and simulate it so that I can determine the distance between where you buried the black cube and where you fell." Anik said. "Why can't we go there directly? You go there often, so you must be familiar with the way, right?" Maureen asked, puzzled. "It would be so easy to get there." "Hurry up, estimate how far the place you fell is from where you buried the black cube." Arnok looked around, then took out his wand and asked with a smile, "Do you need me to help you recreate the scene? Hang you up and throw you down?" Maureen shook his head quickly. He ran to the stone arch, looked at the direction, thought carefully, and looked at the castle again. "Let me think. It was here yesterday, and then after I fell down, I saw beasts fighting, and then I saw a big stone over there, and ran there." Maureen jumped off the stone platform and ran behind the stone arch in the general direction. That was the direction of the castle. He remembered that he only ran 10 steps to the bottom of the stone, and then buried the black cube under the stone. "It's probably here. I forgot how many steps I ran. I was in a hurry at that time and didn't pay attention." Maureen leaned against the corner of the castle. There were a few traces of spells on the ground here, but the damage was not as serious as other places. He was probably standing at this place at that time. After burying the black cube in the soil, he ran down the hillside on the left. "Is it here? How deep did you bury it?" Arnok also came over and stepped on the ground twice. There were 2 burned pits on the ground and a petrified goose down grass, which looked like an exquisite clay sculpture. "About 15 inches? I didn't have a wand at that time, so I could only use magic with my hands, but magic was limited and I didn't bury it deep enough," Maureen said, and then asked, "Arnok, do you want to contact Mr. Darrow to go to where I am and measure the distance before digging? Last night when he was in the abyss, he couldn't apparate. Maybe the old Mr. Darrow had some way to get to where he was." "No, let's start digging," Arnok said casually. "What?" Maureen thought he had heard it wrong, and asked in confusion, "What can we dig out if we dig here?" "Dig if I tell you to dig, don't use magic." Arnok took out 2 shovels from his pocket and threw one to Maureen. Maureen took the shovel, confused. "Arnok, you know I threw the black cube into that world, right?" Maureen held the shovel in his hand, not knowing how to start. But Arnok had already started shoveling the soil. He shoveled up the soil and patted the ground twice with the shovel. Seeing Maureen still standing there stupidly, he said unhappily, "Dig quickly, why do you want me, an old bone, to do it alone? But, digging like this is useless." Maureen felt that Arnok was a little confused. "Hurry up, dig out the black cube before the people from the Ministry of Magic arrive." Arnok dug a few more shovels. It looked easy to dig the soil with this shovel. Maureen opened his mouth. He didn't know what Arnok was thinking, but looking at Arnok's look, he didn't seem to be joking, so he could only shovel suspiciously. He felt that he was so stupid. He buried the black cube in the abyss. What's the point of digging here? Is there something special about this shovel? Maureen muttered as he touched the shovel, but the shovel looked very ordinary and there was nothing special about it. Arnok dug hard, and he could only follow him with doubts in his mind. Soon, they dug all over the area within a radius of 2 meters. This time, they really turned the soil over, and the grass that had escaped last night was also turned into a mess by them. Do we really want to continue? Maureen asked. Arnok was already sitting on the edge of the stone platform. He dug twice and stopped because he was too tired. He sat and directed Maureen, "Don't be lazy, hurry up. Hurry up. Did you remember the wrong position? Even if I remember the right position, it's useless. What the hell can I dig out here?" Maureen turned around depressed and shouted to the back of himself to dig another shovel. Clang. A strange collision sound came from the soil. No way. Maureen used a shovel to dig the soil away, and then stared blankly. The black magic cube was lying in the pit. "Did you find it? Great, pick it up quickly," Arnok said cheerfully. How could it be? Maureen threw away the shovel, dug the black cube out of the soil, flicked off the wet soil, and turned it over to look at the bottom of the black cube. 2 fangs. It was really the Clive family black cube he buried in the abyss last night. I actually dug it out. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen was stunned. Arnok had come over and turned the black cube in Maureen's hand over and over, nodding with satisfaction. Okay, now all 12 black cubes are here. What is this operation? Maureen's mind still didn't turn around. Didn't I go there last night? Oh, of course you went, so we have to dig it ourselves. Arnok gently opened a crack in the black cube, and a strange sigh came from inside, but Arnok quickly closed it again. I don't understand. I threw it into the abyss. Why did it run back? Maureen asked. Arnok picked up the 2 shovels and put them back into his pocket. This, how should I put it? I can't explain it too clearly, just think of the black cube as a special thing. With these 2 super invincible 1IU Tongshiangsha shovels, it is more than enough to dig out the black cube. Arnok said leisurely. 1IU, what is it? Maureen felt a little unbelievable. I just named it casually, don't take it seriously. Arnok tossed the black cube and said, okay, next I'm going to the Forbidden Forest and catch the shadow that ran out of the black cube guarded by the centaur. That shadow is used to mark the black cube and can't be lost, then the matter of the black cube can come to an end. Wait, I still don't understand. If I just hung the black cube on a branch in the abyss yesterday, how would we dig it today? Maureen asked. Then dig in the air. You and I are special. With a special shovel, we can dig out a special black cube. Others don't have our ability. Sometimes I think my brain is still as bright as before. Next time, we can consider going to the Muggle cemetery to dig the sunflowers in the back garden of Darrow together. The oil extracted from the sunflower seeds is quite delicious. Arnok laughed and seemed very satisfied with the method he came up with. Maureen was confused. Why does this operation sound so weird? Chapter 496, The Forgotten Age of Magic. Maureen thought about it carefully. Every time he went to the abyss, he came back not far from where he disappeared. It seemed that the farther he walked in the abyss, the farther he would be from the place where he disappeared when he came back. This gave him a very strange feeling. Could it be that the abyss was essentially the same as the world he was in now? Arnok, what kind of place is the abyss? Maureen asked. It's hard to say what that place is, but I can give you a hint. Arnok put the black cube into his pocket, climbed up the stone platform again, took out his magic wand and knocked on the stone arch, separating the 2 stone arches. The strange curtain finally stopped going back and forth between the 2 stone arches and returned to its normal appearance. What hint? There are many unknown mysteries in the magic world, and many advanced magic rules are blocked by the stone arches. Our current world is where muggles and wizards coexist. What you see are all elementary magic phenomena. Arnok explained casually. He moved another stone arch to one side and cast many special spells on it to prevent it from getting into trouble again. Basic magic. Maureen didn't quite understand. Yes, it's different from the basic magic you learned. Before the stone arch was sealed, there were some strange magics, very strange. There are few records in magic books now, because compared to those, it is already a legend, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. After doing all this, Arnold put away his wand, dusted off his hands, and slowly walked down the stone platform. How weird is it? Let me give you an example. Isn't the fat professor's curse immunity ability very powerful? His ancestor was a warrior in ancient times and was very agile. Once a wizard gets close to him, he's basically doomed. Your spells can't kill him, and he can pick up an axe or something to chop you. He's called the nemesis of wizards. Arnok walked along the hillside towards the forbidden forest, explaining as he walked, in the past, people in their family were the nightmare of wizards and had a very high status, but what about the inheritance to the present? This society is no longer an age of fighting and killing, and there is no need for warriors to exist, so he can only be a special Muggle. Before Professor Adams awakened his abilities, he would be restricted by other people's magic. Only after awakening his abilities would he become immune to magic. If he could learn some self-defense techniques, wizards would have no way to do anything to him. For example, the crazy circulate used to be a swordsman. Swords also have magic. Their magic is performed by swords, and the wand is only auxiliary. Unfortunately, both the curse-free warriors and swordsmen have not kept up with the pace of the times. Arnok sighed. Maureen nodded. He had experienced circulate's sword magic. In the painting, circulate easily dealt with Payengard's men. That was also the first time he saw the power of a swordsman. Times are always changing. When people pursue peace, some seemingly barbaric and redundant things will gradually be eliminated. There is nothing we can do about it. So many special or weird magics have disappeared in history. What you are learning now is only very basic magic. This kind of magic can be used to meet the needs of life, not for fighting and killing. Arnok seemed a little regretful, but he felt that it was natural. In this era, who would still hold a sword and fight with others? In the magic age thousands of years ago, there was a flourishing era of magic, with all kinds of powerful magic. You thought that the killing curse was the most powerful magic, but thousands of years ago, there were endless magics more powerful than the killing curse, and there were countless people with special magical abilities. Arnold and Maureen walked to the edge of the rippling lake. He stood by the lake, pondered for a moment, and then said, "Powerful magic is invincible on the battlefield, and often a spell will cause a river of blood." Over time, people finally became afraid of magical wars and began to reject wizards. They felt that wars should not be interfered with by wizards, so 12 peace-loving talents joined forces to formulate an agreement and found a special stone archway. Maureen listened quietly to this history that had been lost in the magic book. Arnold was knowledgeable and knew many unknown things. He thought it was amazing and this opportunity should not be easily let go. The stone arch was created by a very powerful wizard. Its age is unknown. The magic it contains is extremely terrifying. It used to be a powerful weapon on the battlefield. Throwing it on the battlefield can instantly destroy an army and suck everyone in. You can think of it as a door to death. Anyone who enters this stone arch will never come back. Maureen took a breath. Sucking people in and destroying an army in an instant? Then now he really has to thank the stone arch for its ability to suck people. When Arnold said this, he turned his head and looked at Maureen carefully, then stretched out his hand and pinched Maureen's face. "What for?" Maureen asked unhappily. Arnold was puzzled. "Are you too thick-skinned, and even the stone arch despises you? Is there any benefit to being thick-skinned?" Maureen said happily. Arnok flicked Maureen's head with his hand, then said, "What did you feel when you walked into the stone arch?" Maureen thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "I don't know, but I seem to have experienced death once, the feeling that my soul was about to float out of my body, but then I was dragged back by a big black bear." "Big black bear?" Arnok frowned. "Yes, it was a big black bear, and then I ran out. Maybe it was the magic in my body? Anyway, that power reappeared, and I came out and dealt with peeing together with Professor Binns. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar." Maureen grinned. Arnok touched his chin thoughtfully, and then continued, "The stone arch is too powerful, but because it is special, the 12 people improved it, like a shackle, sealing the most dangerous magic rules, and only retaining some very basic magic." "Can magic rules be sealed?" Maureen asked puzzledly. "This is really a strange statement. Your understanding of magic is only one-sided. Any wizard must follow a rule when performing magic, which cannot be exceeded. For example, GAP's 5 exceptions to transfiguration, these are all magic rules. Once a certain rule is sealed, then this type of magic will be forced to change." Arnok did not explain too much. He continued, "After the dangerous magic rules were sealed, the status of wizards began to decline rapidly. For a period of time, even Muggles could persecute wizards, forcing wizards to hide themselves and go underground until now. Was magic so bad at that time? Maureen asked puzzledly. He felt that even if wizards only knew some basic magic, they were more than enough to deal with Muggles, and they should not be persecuted. At that time, wizards studied magic not for daily life, but for attack. Wizards who could cast powerful and destructive magic had a very high status. Many wizards did not study how to make a meal delicious, but studied advanced killing magic. Compared with those magic, Avada Kedavra was child's play. Arnok said. Is Avada Kedavra child's play? Maureen exclaimed. Chapter 497, There's hope when you are alive. An Avada Kedavra can only kill one person, but some horrible spells can evaporate an army in an instant. Which one do you think is more powerful? Arnold said. Maureen opened his mouth. This was indeed too much. Murderous magic has created too many disasters and can easily affect innocent people, so people began to fear magic. Thousands of years ago, it was an era when real magic flourished, but it was also an era when dark magic was respected. Arnold said. They had already reached Hagrid's hut, but Hagrid didn't seem to be in school. No one knew where he went. He hadn't been seen last night. After those dangerous magic rules were sealed by the Stone Arch, the magic that wizards knew was suddenly restricted. At this time, wizards began to study the magic used in life, such as how to turn chalk into a feather pen, how to make candy taste different, etc. Arnok smiled and said, the magic of wizards began to change from killing wars to how to effectively improve life. Of course, many wizards can't stand this huge gap, and still want to study black magic, rise again, and regain their status. There are many black magics that are really powerful, but they are still not as good as those in the past. In that era, waving a wand and chanting a spell, killing people invisibly, a spell to eliminate a group of people, destroy a piece of land, and make life miserable, leaving no grass. The consequences of combat magic were too serious. Now, the most feared magic is just Avada Kedavra. This period of dark magic history has never been written into the history of magic, probably to prevent some ambitious wizards today from wanting to revive the dark magic of that era and looking for the sealed Stone Arch. Just like the descendants of the 12 families, such as Payengard, who are clear about the mission of their ancestors. He must have learned from his family what the Stone Arch means, so he wants to destroy the seal of the Stone Arch. Although Voldemort was a descendant of Slytherin, he was an orphan and no one told him this dusty history. Otherwise, with his ambition, he would definitely set his mind on the Stone Arch. Magic has gradually changed from fighting to life. This is probably the beginning of civilization. If those magic rules are not sealed, humans will still have to fight every day, and it will not be the current situation. Muggles will not create so many interesting things. Arnok sighed. The disappearance of one magic era is the birth of another magic era. In any case, the magic of the later era is more advocated, and magic is used in life instead of war. Maureen said thoughtfully, no wonder Professor Binns didn't tell anyone what the Stone Arch meant. Maybe he didn't want another Ping to appear. That's right, so I didn't let you tell the professor about the Black Cube, nor let the people in the Ministry of Magic know. The Ministry of Magic is full of good and bad people. You never know how many people are digging for this kind of thing, which is enough to cause another terrible war. Arnold became serious again. His clear blue eyes looked at Maureen. I'm telling you now, just because you are involved, but you can't tell anyone. I have found an excuse to cover up for the Ministry of Magic and the headmaster. If they ask, you just say you don't know. I understand, Arnold, don't worry. Maureen nodded seriously. The magic world moved underground, mainly to protect Muggles, but there are still many wizards who are unwilling to hide and want to rule Muggles openly. Whether it is Grindelwald, Voldemort, or Ping, they all want to show magic in front of everyone so that wizards will no longer hide. With the current power of dark magic and the intervention of the Ministry of Magic, they are not enough to completely overturn the coexistence of Muggles and wizards. Even people with the methods of Voldemort and Payengard will fail. Once they know that there were powerful magic rules that were sealed in the past, some dark wizards will definitely focus on the Stone Arch and release those dark magic rules, so that they can cast more terrible magic, enough to make wizards rise again. Then the Stone Arch has been opened now, Maureen asked a little uneasily. Arnok shook his head. I was not there last night. When I went there, you had already taken down all the black cubes. Maybe 3 or 4 rules were opened, maybe 6 or 7. I can't be sure. Professor Binns and Pangard know best, but both of them are not here at the moment, so we can only rely on ourselves to find them." Maureen stopped. After Arnak said this, he really realized the seriousness of the matter and felt very uncomfortable, because to be exact, it was still him who opened the stone arch last night. "I'm sorry, Arnak," Maureen whispered. Arnak looked at Maureen, and Maureen's shadow was reflected in his blue eyes, like a clear lake, without waves. "This is none of your business, silly boy." Arnak laughed. "You can't defend against Ping at all." Maureen hesitated and said, "Arnak, is my existence a mistake? If there is no such person as me, because only he can open the stone archway, if there is no him, there will be no so many right and wrong. Your existence is not a mistake." Arnak raised his voice, and Maureen actually heard a hint of severity in his voice, and even some anger. This made Maureen stun for a moment. "No one's existence is a mistake, everyone has the right to live, including you, understand?" Arnak tightened his face, and for the first time in his calm eyes, waves were raised, as if something flashed in his eyes. Maureen looked at Arnak, and he found that Arnak seemed to have suddenly become a different person, becoming a little strange to him. Arnak always spoke to him in the tone of an old naughty boy, never really criticizing him, and never seeing him really angry, but at this moment Arnak's tone was so harsh that he couldn't adapt to it. "The latest novel is first published on the 6th-9th book bar. Whether it is you or him, you have the right to live. You should not give up easily, and you can't give up. There is a solution to everything. As long as you are alive, there is hope." Arnak looked away and looked up at the sky, his eyes flickering slightly. Maureen saw that there seemed to be something in the corner of Arnak's eyes reflecting the sunlight, and Maureen's heart was touched. The he in Arnak's mouth was Evan. Maureen still didn't understand what happened to Evan that made him lose control and finally commit suicide, but he vaguely understood that maybe Evan's thoughts were the same as his. "I won't let the same thing happen to you," Arnak said softly. Misfortune befell Arnak's son, which was a very cruel thing for an old man. Perhaps Arnak saw the shadow of his son in Maureen, and he didn't want Maureen to become the second Evan. "Arnak, I will try my best." Maureen nodded solemnly. "You know, I never give up easily." Arnak closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I know you won't give up." Arnak regained his cheerful look. He reached out and rubbed Maureen's head, and then made Maureen's hair stand upside down. "You are so thick-skinned, nothing will happen to you." Maureen muttered, took out his wand again, and smoothed down his hair. Chapter 498, Underage Magic. Compared to thousands of years ago, the magic knowledge we are learning now feels like underage. Arnak continued to walk towards the Forbidden Forest. Underage. Maureen followed him. "Yes, the magic of our era belongs to underage, and the magic of adults is sealed by the stone arch. It's the same as people. Underage children are immature, but full of vitality, with more choices and hopes. The adult world is too cruel, always full of all kinds of unspeakable desires, contradictions and disputes, so I still prefer underage magic," Arnak said with a smile. Maureen nodded, not quite understanding. He didn't quite understand the ideas of adults, but when he thought of Floyd hiding from the XZ in order to take on his responsibilities and protect his wife and children, he seemed to understand a little more. The adult world is indeed complicated, it's better to be a child. "So what exactly do you mean by the abyss you just mentioned?" "It is one of the magical rules, but it is not sealed by the stone arch, but is independently attached to the other side of this world." "The other side?" "Everything has two sides. We live on the front side of this world, so naturally there are people living on the back side of this world. Do you understand?" Maureen was shocked. This was the first time he had heard of this statement. "So those the people and monsters I saw in the abyss are all people living on the backside?" Maureen asked. He tried to understand what the so-called backside meant, whether it meant underground or something else, but found that he couldn't imagine this statement. "Yes, the abyss and our world exist in mutual dependence, but it is also a magical place with its own magical rules. Just like the world in the painting, it also exists in dependence on us," Arnak said. Maureen remembered the so-called special shovel that was so-called invincible and connected to the world. Could it be that Arnak used that shovel to dig through the world? Or, that shovel is like the Hufflepuff's room of requirement, providing them with a passage to other magical areas? Magic is far from being as simple as you think. Many special magics are beyond the reach of many people in their lifetime. As I said, all magic has been immature for thousands of years since the stone arch was sealed. You need to gradually expand your worldview. The two of them have reached the edge of the Forbidden Forest. The trees in the Forbidden Forest are lush and green, sinking straight into the sky. Birds are singing in the forest, and all kinds of strange magical creatures are making strange calls. At this time, there was a noisy sound in the distance. Maureen looked back and found that the people from the Ministry of Magic had arrived and were talking to Principal McGonagall. Several people had already rushed into the castle, and some ran to the vicinity of the stone arch. I will explain everything to them. You don't need to worry or say more. Let's go and get that guy from the Forbidden Forest back into the magic cube first. Arnok walked into the Forbidden Forest. With Arnok there, Maureen didn't worry that he would be attacked by any monster in the Forbidden Forest. As long as he followed Arnok honestly, those dangerous creatures would avoid him. The process of finding the monster was not complicated. Arnok walked in the Forbidden Forest for a while, found a relatively open place, took out the Briar family magic cube guarded by the centaurs, and gently tapped the black magic cube with his magic wand. Not long after, a strange wind suddenly swept through the woods, the leaves rustled, and many birds flew into the sky in panic. A wisp of smoke spread out from the depths of the Forbidden Forest, and the overwhelming smoke made the entire forest a little gloomy. Maureen took out his magic wand. Anyway, he and Ran were chased badly by this guy in the Forbidden Forest last time, so it was better to be cautious. The strange man with the Briar family mark on his forehead condensed out of the smoke and stared closely at the black magic cube in Arnok's hand. Give it back. A dry and hoarse voice came out of the smoke monster's mouth. It's over, Briar. Arnok opened the box of the black magic cube a crack. Briar. Maureen looked at the smoke monster in front of him in surprise. It's not over yet. I can feel that the sealed magic rules have been opened, and what was supposed to happen has finally happened, the smoke man said in a low voice. We will deal with the rest of the things. Your descendants have also awakened their abilities. You don't need to cause trouble anymore, Arnok said. The man was silent for a moment, and then he dispersed into a pile of smoke again. Arnok waved his magic wand and rolled up a blue wind. The wind suddenly fell on the smoke. The smoke made a sharp whistle and rushed into the black cube. Arnok, this smoke man, is it Briar? Maureen asked in confusion. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. He is a kind of protective magic sealed in the black cube by the ancestors of the 12 families. It can be simply understood as their magical consciousness, but it has been stripped away. When the black cube is in danger, he will look for his descendants and ask them to stop the danger. Arnok closed the black cube and put it back in his pocket. So he captured and ran that day just to remind and ran to stop it all? Maureen asked doubtfully. Yes, he made all kinds of huge roars and made deep pits in the woods. At the bottom of the deep pit, there is a sphere that can only be condensed by Locke's magnet. These are all clues he left for you. He wants to lure you here and make you think of Lucas. Lucas has Locke's magnet in his hand, which always brings very serious disasters. The smoke monster condensed by Briar is just to simulate Lucas' behavior. Arnok explained, and said with some regret, but it is obvious that his approach is somewhat futile. No one in the school knows about this matter, except you who can associate it with the Locke magnet, but you can't do anything about it. Is it really like this? Maureen felt a little unbelievable. On the night when Anran was captured, he was still worried about Anran and rushed into the Forbidden Forest to save her like a headless fly. It's a pity that people didn't want to hurt Anran at all. It was him who thought too much. He could actually show up and explain the problem directly, and we wouldn't misunderstand him. Maureen said. He couldn't explain it clearly. A magical consciousness can't do too many things. In addition, the secret of the stone arch seal is too dangerous, and he won't say it casually. He can only guide you in this way. It's a pity that I was not there at that time and couldn't help in time. Professor Binns is also in school. Why didn't he find this? Maureen asked, puzzled. Maybe he knows, but he didn't say it. I think he should have investigated it himself since the summer vacation. He only tracked down Piang's whereabouts a while ago and left school to catch him. Unfortunately, he ignored Helena and got trapped instead. Arnok guessed. Maureen suddenly realized, and he remembered that last time in the Muggle office building, Lucas opened a crack in the black cube, and then a voice inside reminded him how to deal with a Locan magnet. It was also at that time that he knew that the Locan magnet needed to be cracked with lightning magic. So not all the consciousness sealed in the black cube was released. Maybe the ancestors of the Briar family were accidentally released by Lucas and the old witch. But the truth about the Forbidden Forest centaurs was lost in history, so he didn't believe the words of the Smoke Man. Chapter 499 After the Storm. Everything was caused by misunderstanding, but no matter what, the next thing to do is to find out what dangerous magic rules Pyangad has violated. The two of them began to walk out of the Forbidden Forest. Maureen asked again, Arnok, why do you two want to go to the abyss? For tourism. Arnok replied leisurely. Don't joke. Maureen looked suspicious. The scenery there is very beautiful during the day, but it's a pity that you can't see it. Arnok walked out of the Forbidden Forest with a smile. No matter how Maureen asked, he just didn't want to answer this question. After leaving the Forbidden Forest, they returned to school. Arnok went to find the people from the Ministry of Magic leisurely, and Maureen ran back to the school infirmary. As for how Arnok explained to the Ministry of Magic and Principal McGonagall, it was not Maureen's problem. About 2 hours later, Alton rushed over in a hurry. After grabbing Maureen and checking him, he began to ask, how did you get to school because of a nightmare? Probably sleepwalking. Maureen said embarrassedly. Alton said angrily and amusedly, hurry up and tell the truth. Maureen looked at Alton's anxious look, and he suddenly remembered what Pyangad said last night. Pyangad mentioned that Alton was a very secretive person. Was Pyangad deliberately bluffing him? He didn't know whether he should believe Pyangad's words, but was it necessary for Pyangad to mislead him by boasting about Alton's magic level? Grandpa, this is what happened. Maureen decided not to hide his ability anymore. He told him about Helena breaking into his bedroom last night to trick him into coming to school. He also mentioned that he could apprehend and that he could use magic outside of school. After saying all this, he carefully watched his grandfather's reaction. Alton sounded shocked. You believe a ghost's random words? Do you know that you might get into trouble? Sorry, Grandpa, I shouldn't have taken the initiative. Maureen muttered. Alton's reaction was the same as usual, and there was nothing strange about it. Could it be that he was really suspicious? As usual, Alton gave Maureen a long and earnest lecture, and then asked in confusion, I didn't know that you could use magic outside of school? Why can't the Ministry of Magic check it? This is a problem. Grandpa, is there something you didn't tell me? For example, can you use magic outside of school like me when you were in school? Maureen asked curiously. When I was in school, I was a good kid who followed the rules and never used magic outside of school. I must have inherited your good genes, right? Maureen said with a smile. My good genes are to obey the law and listen to the elders very much. I have this too. Maureen said seriously. Alton raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? Okay, maybe there is a little deviation, but it's good overall. Maureen smiled. You are always so restless, it will make me upset. Alton shook his head helplessly. At this time, Arnok had brought people from the Ministry of Magic in, and Alton also stood up quickly. The Minister of Magic Augustine came over to comfort Maureen. His attitude was very friendly, and even Maureen's grandfather Alton was deeply surprised. Mr. Singer has told us everything that happened last night. You are very brave and caught the real Lucas, but this approach is very dangerous. I hope you will not be reckless in the future. Augustine said to Maureen. I understand, Minister. Maureen said honestly. Augustine asked some more details, but most of them were answered by Arnok. He just agreed. He didn't have to worry about the specific things anyway. The people from the Ministry of Magic left quickly. Before leaving the school infirmary, Principal McGonagall said to Alton, Mr. Walker, I will discuss with you in detail about Maureen in a few days. Although he can use magic outside the school, it does not mean that he can break the school rules. We need to ensure that he will not do anything dangerous again. Of course, Principal McGonagall. Alton nodded and glanced at Maureen again. Maureen shrugged her shoulders and didn't care much about this criticism. Maureen had breakfast in the school infirmary. The house elves brought them food. Unran woke up in the afternoon. When she woke up, she looked much better. Are you okay? Maureen, you fainted last night and scared us. Unran asked. I'm alive and well, I'm fine. Maureen stretched and explained some things to Unran in simple terms. Unran was still very curious about his own abilities, but Maureen was not sure what he could do specifically. Arnold had already left and could not provide him with too much information. The latest novels are first published on the 6th book bar on September 9th. They stayed in school for a day. Principal McGonagall asked Professor Francis to bring Unran's parents over to take care of Unran. Alton also chatted enthusiastically with the Briar couple about Muggle things. The Briar couple looked at each other, not sure if they really liked Alton's stories, because many of the stories did not seem so harmonious to Maureen. For example, Alton was very happy to say that last time a dark wizard cast a prank magic on your microwave oven. Anything put in and taken out would turn into a python, and it swallowed a person who didn't know magic. Alton thought this story was very interesting, but the Briar couple looked terrified. When we arrived, the python was circling in the living room, and the poor man was still struggling in the python's stomach, but fortunately, the python was just a fake, a prank magic, it wouldn't digest them. This magic is still great. Alton excitedly told the Briar couple the whole process, because this kind of prank magic would not cause any harm, and everyone would laugh it off for wizards, so he thought the Briar couple would also find it funny. But the Briar couple's expressions were definitely not related to the word funny. After making sure that everyone was fine, Alton volunteered to send the Briar family of 3 home, and then left with Maureen. "You have to thank Grandpa today." After returning home, Alton said happily, "I know you are interested in Enran, so I had a great chat with the Briar couple today." "Grandpa, that's not the case, don't talk nonsense." Maureen blushed. "I didn't object. Why are you in such a hurry? If you like someone, you can't wait, you have to fight for it yourself." Alton sat on the sofa and said with a smile on his face, "I am trying to build a good relationship with the Briar couple today. We may even be a family in the future. They are very interested in my topic, is that so?" Maureen lay on the sofa, raised his head and asked curiously, "Are they really interested?" "Don't worry, I'm the best at dealing with Muggles. They will definitely like you. Grandpa is thinking about your lifelong happiness. Next time I will tell them about the corpses in the hospital morgue that were cast under black magic." Judging from their expressions today, they should like to listen to this kind of thrilling magic story. Chapter 500 Walker Family. The matter of Paingerd did not affect the progress of this vacation. Summer vacation still had to be celebrated. Alton would still go out to handle some cases from time to time. Now, for the sake of caution, he would bring Maureen with him to prevent Maureen from getting lost in sleepwalking again. Lucas was arrested, but the memories in his mind were cleared by powerful magic. Even the people from the Ministry of Magic could not spy on him. Although Paingerd fell into the stone arch, he had already ensured that his secret would not be leaked. According to Arnok, Lucas lost his self-consciousness shortly after entering Azkaban and became a walking corpse. "Maybe he was kissed by a Dementor," Arnok said. "That's unlucky." Maureen shuddered. The kiss of a Dementor would suck away the soul. That was not fun. No one would like this kind of thing. Sweet wrote a letter to Maureen. He had moved from the Muggle orphanage to Floyd's home. His sister in the orphanage strangely regained consciousness. It seemed that there was something wrong with a Locan magnet that night. In short, the poor Muggle girl when he finally woke up. Lucas was caught and Floyd's suspicion was cleared, but for various reasons, Floyd still had no way to obtain a legal identity in the Wizarding Society. Fortunately, the Ministry of Magic had withdrawn the surveillance of Nim and his mother, and Floyd was used to being a Muggle and living with Muggles, so they found a Muggle town again and settled down. Out of care for Sweet, Floyd didn't mind raising another child. They invited Maureen and Alton to visit his home. Clive's family was happy and Maureen was envious. Professor Adams and Anrin awakened their abilities, but with Arnak there, they didn't need to worry about the problem of their eyes glowing, so the two of them were also at peace. Arnak also concealed the abilities of Professors Anrin and Adams from the Ministry of Magic. Once the Ministry of Magic knew about this ability, it would be detrimental to the secret of the Stone Arch, whether studying them or the Stone Arch. Arnak only told Principal McGonagall. Principal McGonagall knew this, so she would not tell anyone. Everything was moving in a good direction, and holiday life seemed to become interesting again. Grandpa, is this the only broken book of our family tree? Maureen turned over a dusty little book with disdain. When Paingerd said that last time, he also began to explore his family intentionally or unintentionally. Maureen wanted to know what the surname Walker meant. But Alton found a small book bitten by insects from the attic. It only recorded the names of 7 generations. It looked very shabby, and was completely different from the vigorous genealogy tree of the Addams family. "What do you expect our family to be like?" Alton asked casually while eating at the dining table. "I thought it was at least as widespread as other ancient wizard families." Maureen did not find any records about the Walker family in this family tree. Their ancestors for 7 generations were wizards, but that was all. It was not like what Paingerd said. That night, Paingerd spoke highly of the Walker family and said that Alton was a very powerful wizard. However, Maureen had been with Alton since he was a child, but he did not find anything different about his grandfather. Alton was just like other wizards every day. He knew a little about Muggle things and liked his work. He was not like a wizard like Floyd, who was very secretive. But he thought again, Floyd could fool the aurors of the Ministry of Magic. Could Grandpa do it too? Grandpa, you are a very powerful wizard, right? Maureen asked casually. Not bad. I'm good at removing curses. Alton picked up a slice of bread for himself and poured himself a cup of steaming milk. I'm not talking about that. I mean, do you have any special magical abilities, like, well, Anrin can treat Magus or something, I can avoid being prophesied or something. Maureen threw the tattered genealogy book on the coffee table, sat opposite Alton, and took a piece of bread. Doy had almost finished a piece of bread on the table. Alton also took a piece of bread for Doy and touched Doy's ear with his index finger. Maureen was suddenly stunned. Grandpa, can you see Doy? Alton chewed the bread and asked disapprovingly, what do you mean by seeing? Shouldn't I see it? Doy can only be seen by a few people. I mentioned it to you last time, and you clearly said that you couldn't see it either. Maureen said in surprise. Doy is a very strange little beast. Hugo, Lily and other people can't see it. Lucas and the old witch were also scolded by Doy for not being able to see it. Sweet and Paingerd can see it, and Sick and Floyd. In addition, there are the Arnoks, as well as Professor Adams and Anrin after awakening their abilities. But how can Grandpa see it? When he brought Doy home in the 1st grade, he asked his grandfather about this question, but at that time, Grandpa seemed to be unable to see Doy. I didn't say I can't see it. I just said that it's strange that someone can't see you, a little beast. Alton laughed. This little beast is very interesting. The latest novels are published on the 6th and 9th books. So you can see it all the time. Maureen was surprised. Usually, Doy didn't like to get close to anyone, and he didn't even touch Hugo. If there was food, he would run out to eat a little, and if there was no food, he would stay in Maureen's pocket and sleep, so he didn't consider whether Grandpa could see it. Why are you acting weird today? It's just a little pet. I don't object to you having a pet. There's nothing wrong with being able to see it. Alton blinked, then waved his hand and threw the plate back into the sink. He was full. Grandpa, are you hiding something from me? Maureen asked seriously. What's the matter? Alton said casually, why do you care so much about whether this little guy can see it? But none of my classmates can see Doy, why can only you and I see it? Maureen asked. Are we the only two? That's not the case. There are some other people. Maureen hesitated. That's right, although I don't know what this little guy is. It's probably a new pet cultivated by the pet store, maybe it can choose who can see it. Some magical animals have the ability to do this. They will only let people who trust them see them, and they are invisible to those who don't trust them. Alton guessed. Do I? Great. Doy called out comfortably. Okay, hurry up and have breakfast. Alton stood up, sat on the sofa, picked up a newspaper of magic new information and started reading. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.